several matters, including postponements, consent docket, and then, of course, the contested matters. I will call out and identify the postponed cases, and those matters, obviously will not go forward today. I believe we have 2 of them, and then we have a motion to postpone. I believe all the parties are present for that. So let me go ahead and just identify those postponed matters. Well, actually, we have more than 2. Case number 2022-140, 3621 East Lombard Street. AB Associates is the appellant. That matter is postponed. That will not be heard today. Again, that's 3621 East Lombard Street. Next postponed case, 2022-142, 1501 North Bentlow. Nick Bowes is the appellant. That matter will not be heard today. It is postponed. Again, 2022-142, 1501 North Bentlow. The next matter, postponed, 2022-143, 3404 Hamilton Avenue. Sean Mellis is the appellant. Again, 3404 Hamilton Avenue. That matter is postponed today.
There's one more. Just
Okay.
postponed, and that was the first one.
Okay, great. Let's see. All right, next postponed case is 2022-144, 2300 Garrison Boulevard. Marcus Haynes is the appellant. Again, 2300 Garrison. That matter is postponed today.
What number was that?
2022-144.
Okay.
Same page. All right. And we had a new postponement, which is case number 2022-254, 1503 East 28th Street. Kushal Gupta is the appellant.
And that will be on the 5/24.
Okay, that matter will be moved to the next docket on May 24th. So that matter will not be heard. Again, 1503 East 28th Street. Okay, those are the ones which have already been postponed. I'm going to call case number 2017-073, 5715 Roland Avenue. Joseph Woolman is the appellant. Mr. Woolman, thank you. And who do we have for? Okay. Good afternoon, sir. Okay, Mr. McCann, thank you for appearing. I understand we had an issue with a COVID situation, and so the case is being, a motion has been filed to postpone.
Correct.
Is that your motion, sir?
It is my motion.
Okay. And we were here on the limited issue to hear expert testimony, as I understand it. The expert being put forth by the opposition has come down with COVID today.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Woolman, I understand that the appellant is in agreement so long as this matter can be moved to the next hearing date, May 24th?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As long as it can be moved, just
All right.
next docket.
Can we accommodate that, Ms. Byrne?
Actually,
Yeah.
sorry, thank you for that, Mr. Woolman, but I will be on vacation those 3 days, actually not vacation, my son's graduation out of state.
Okay.
In that case, listen, as the case number suggests, and first of all, the one good thing about all this is I got to come and see everybody in person, so it's nice to see everybody. But as the case number suggests, this has been dragging on since 2017. It's been appealed 3 times. I suspect it's going to get appealed again. A clock keeps starting over on my poor client, who's a property owner in this matter, and I need to take 30 seconds to represent him at this point and object. I got a call. We spent the weekend preparing our expert witnesses. We were ready to proceed today. I got a call a couple hours ago from Mr. McCann. He's an officer of the court. I have no reason not to believe what he's telling us, but the timing of it is obviously horrible. Again, if we could just move it 2 weeks.
Could we hear it in 2 pieces? Could we hear one part on the 24th and then the next part 2 weeks after that?
Actually, I was checking, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. V, I was just checking my calendar, and I got my date wrong, 23rd, is it okay?
24th,
24th.
Tuesday, 24th.
4th?
Exactly 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, that's fine.
It is?
That's a Tuesday, right?
I'll withdraw my
Thank you for,
objection.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good
I'm sorry.
argument.
As soon as I
Hey.
heard that date, I thought,
that's when you've made a good argument, and right? You talked him into fixing his dates.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think that was the case.
All right. All right. So again, we will accommodate this matter on the next scheduled docket date, May 24th, 2022, with no further postponements or any unforeseen circumstances. But even then, try to accommodate that. But that's where we're going, all right? And so, everybody in agreement on the postponement?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. All right, so case number 2017-073, 5715 Roland Avenue has been postponed. Okay. Now, the next set of cases on our docket are called consent cases, and those matters are cases for which the board believes it has sufficient information to approve the request, approve the appeal. So I will call these cases, and I'm going to ask you to line up in front of me, to my left, to your right, in the order of the cases that I call. We will call your case, have you identified. Well, everyone will be sworn in. We will have you identify yourself when you come to the podium. We will hear any reports from planning and staff, and then we will resolve your case. All right? So those consent cases are as follows. Case number 2022-119, 600 through 630 South Caroline Street. Nate Prettle is the appellant. Case number 2022-131, 506 South Dallas Street. Justin Williams, or Ms. Hecker as the appellant. We also have case number 2022-141, 4517 Park Heights. Adam Carballo is the appellant. And we have case number 2022-168, 6533 Pebble Brook Road, Michelle Clancy, appellant. Make sure I got this one right. Correct, that's all the consent cases, correct? All right, very well. So, we have all the parties sworn?
Nope, no one's been sworn.
All those here to testify, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
All right, calling case number 2022-119, 600 through 630 South Caroline Street. Good afternoon, Mr. Prettle. This matter seeks variance to construct a four-story addition atop an existing structure and use as 172 dwelling units and commercial use on the first floor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Very well. Do we have any reports from staff and planning? Or planning and staff, whichever you go.
I believe planning has no comment, but the request is for off-street parking. So there are 172 spaces required, 0 spaces proposed. So it's 172 space variance requested. Historical uses of the property include, it was used as a warehouse, agricultural product, sales and storage, planing mill, and a process that turned out cut boards into finished lumber.
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department wishes to note that because this property is in the Fells Point Historic District, approval of the application should be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed, which will be issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Prettle, are those conditions acceptable to your client?
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything you'd like to add to your application today?
Yes, just briefly. In regards to the off-street parking, I'd like to submit a parking agreement between the Chasen Companies and the Parking Authority for Baltimore City that details our lease for 172 off-street spaces in the Fleet Eden garage directly across the street from Fleet Street. This is a 5-year lease. We fully intend to extend this, but we are asking for the parking variance, but I would like this to be reflected in the record. And it was unclear, there's a long-term and short-term bicycle parking. I think it wasn't cited, but I'd like to add this to the file. This is a first floor plan showing the 60 long-term bike parking spaces in the building in excess of the 43 that are required. I wasn't sure if that was included in the variance list. And the last thing I would add that we've been undergoing a significant historic design and preservation review process with CHAP. We've had 3 CHAP hearings in front of the commission. We've received both concept approval as well as final design approval, and this project, along with a sort of a sister project to the west at 1400 Alisana Street, had 2 reviews by the city's UDAP panel for sort of master plan and streetscape. And this is a really exciting development on the border of Fells Point and Harbor East. And thank the board for your time.
Great. Thank you so much. Will the board-
Mr. Prettle, just I want to make sure that we have the record clear. So what's required by the code is 43 bicycle spaces, but you're providing 60, so it's a variance the other way?
Well, I don't believe it's a variance, we're providing an excess, but
You're providing an excess
for bicycle
for
parking.
bicycle parking.
Bicycle
Okay,
parking.
just to be clear.
In regards to the short-term bicycle, I want to make
Oh,
sure this
short-term.
is
All right,
short-term
that's what I wanted
bicycle
to get
parking.
clarity on.
We are providing 16 spaces in lieu of 24 required, and the reason for that is we had additional bike racks along Alisana. The Department of Transportation, throughout our site plan review, due to the width of the sidewalk, had asked us to remove. They will likely be replaced possibly on Eden Street as part of the other building. You know, we're sufficient that we're going to have enough bike racks for everyone, but as it relates to this request, I would like to add that short-term bicycle parking variance.
All right. That's what, I lost that in my notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Make it part of the record. Case number 2022-131, 506 South Dallas Street. Ms. Hecker, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg, Martin, Greenberg, playing the role of Justin Williams today, who tested positive for COVID this morning.
Oh,
so-
boy, okay. Well, we wish him well and
Indeed.
speedy recovery. This is a request to use the property as a neighborhood commercial establishment, an office, and seeking a variance for off-street parking, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And do we have any reports from planning and staff?
Yeah, thank you. This property, like the previous one, is also in the Fells Point Historic District. And therefore, the Department of Planning is recommending that approval of the application be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage, are completed in accordance with an authorization to proceed issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friend.
2 matters before the board. First, neighborhood commercial establishment office use. And the second, off-street parking. 4 spaces are required, none are proposed. So it's a variance for 4 off-street parking spaces being requested. Research property was built for and used as a warehouse and was used for storage and/or motor vehicle repair from 1971 to 2001. 2001, it was converted to a single-family dwelling.
It?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Ms. Hecker, is the chap condition acceptable to your client?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is there anything you'd like to add to your application today?
I would just like to add a folder of exhibits that Mr. Williams has prepared. I would note that his calculation was that 5 parking spaces are required. They're providing 0. I noted that Ms. Byrne mentioned 4 spaces. I got into this case a couple of hours ago and have not checked the math, but in all cases, we're not providing any parking on site.
Understood. All right. Anything from your guest today?
This is John Sherman of Story Farm New Media, the applicant.
All right. Well, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Right.
I don't think we have anything further.
All right. That being said, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you so much. Good luck to you. Case number 2022-141, 4517 Park Heights. Good afternoon, sir. We have Adam Corballo as the appellant, but you are?
Nehemiah Curtis. Nehemiah Curtis.
Nehemiah
Yeah.
Curtis?
Yep.
Okay, could you spell your name for the record, sir?
Nehemiah.
Right.
Curtis, Curtis.
Wonderful. And this matter addresses a rear infill addition by enclosing the rear yard, the parking pad, into one-story garage addition attached to the main building.
Correct.
All right. All right. Hear from planning and staff.
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's variances. We have 2 minimum interior side yard setback. 10 feet is required, 0 is proposed, so it's a full 10-foot variance. Minimum rear yard setback, 20 feet is required, 0 is proposed, so it's a 20-foot variance to the rear yard.
Okay. Mr. Curtis, is there anything you'd like to add to your application at this time?
No, thank you.
All right. The board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And finally, case number 2022-168, 6533 Pebble Brook Road. We have here Michelle Clancy as the appellant, and you today, sir, are?
David Flom.
Your last name spelling?
F as in Frank, L-A-M-M.
All right, Mr. Flom, and this matter addresses or seeks variances to bulk regulations related to the construction of a rear screened-in porch with landing deck, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do we have any reports from planning and staff?
Department of Planning has no comment on this application. Thank you.
One variance requested, minimum rear yard setback, 30 feet required, 18 feet proposed, 12-foot variance requested.
Mr. Flom, is there anything you'd like to add to your application today?
No, sir.
All right. Well, the board, having heard your appeal, we believe we have sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that resolves the consent docket, and so the final section of cases we have are, of course, the contested cases. The order of testimony will be the appellant, who will line up to my left, and the opposition on the right. So the appellant will go first, we'll hear the opposition, and then, just like in court, the appellant will have the final word on rebuttal. Just one caution, to the extent there is a good bit of testimony on either side, but certainly we see it more on opposition, there's a tendency to duplicate the bases for the opposition. So in the interest of time, we respectfully request if you could, if someone has basically stated the basis of your opposition, and we're well able to, take that into consideration, we don't need to hear everyone come up to say the same thing. And so if you could, just as a caution for that, we want to hear from you and want to get your views on the record. But with that caveat, we're happy to hear from you. So, the order of cases here. Second. All right, we're going to start with Roland Avenue, right?
Correct.
All right, so we're going to call case number 2022-136, 3818 Roland Avenue. AB Associates is the appellant. Mr. Berry, welcome, good to see you. This matter addresses or seeks to use a portion of the ground floor of this premises as a beauty shop, basement as art studio, and remainder as 7 dwelling units. Is that correct?
That's correct. Well, it's going to be changed, as you'll hear,
Okay.
reduced.
All right, we can clean that up for the record. Do we have anybody here? Is this an opposition? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman, I apologize. This screen is too large, that's really the issue. I'm down here. I can't see it. All right, well, welcome. Let's hear reports from planning and staff.
Okay. This particular property, the planning department would like to note that the official city record shows the property as 107 feet wide by 125 feet deep. In fact...
Martin, could you speak up a little bit?
Okay, I'll try. Thank you. The city record appears to show that this property measures 107 feet wide along Roland Avenue by 125 feet deep. The building on the property is approximately 30 feet wide by 100 feet deep. This is in the R6 zoning district. However, the department wishes to note that there's an interesting situation with the property. The off-street parking area that's shown on the city records as part of this same lot, which contains at least 12 standard spaces and 2 handicapped accessible spaces, was conveyed by to another property owner in the year 2000. In 2019, the Planning Commission approved a minor subdivision of the property known as 3818 Roland Avenue for the purposes of allowing formation of a new single lot, but on the condition that it not be used for off-street parking unless first consolidated with 3810 Roland Avenue, which is not a subject of this hearing, or unless first granted authorization for use as an open-air parking lot by ordinance. To date, according to records available to planning staff, neither action has occurred, and therefore 3818 Roland Avenue must provide all off-street parking to support its approved uses. This in turn has an effect upon the number of units that the property could have on it without the granting of a variance of lot area requirements. The proposal in front of the board originally was to have 7 units, which would have required a 37% lot area variance, and the department considered that to be an excessive amount. That's basically all that I'm going to say at this point on behalf of the planning department. Thank you. Katie?
So what the board has before it are both conditional uses and variances that are requested. Neighborhood commercial establishment is the requested conditional use. Is it, Mr. Berry, is it office Or is it personal services establishment?
It could be either one. I'll explain
Okay.
to the board
All right. So
where that
either
comes from.
either office or personal service establishment. The multifamily dwelling, we have an application for 7 dwelling units. Off-street parking is required. It's, per the file, 2 spaces would be provided, and then we would need a 5-space variance. Research, the property has been used as an office since 2005. In 1962, it was issued a use and occupancy permit for a funeral home plus 1 dwelling unit. We have letters of opposition from the neighbors, and Councilwoman Ramos is here as well to testify.
Okay. All right.
And that's it.
Very well. Mr. Berry, go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. If I could pass these out, I've given one to Councilwoman Ramos, which will supplement and hopefully elaborate on how we're here today and what we're actually asking for. I'm here with Michael Castagnola in my office, as well as Charlie Jones, who's the contract purchaser of the property, this vacant property. And you have a packet before you which has some photographs of the building. And one of our arguments you'll hear is that it is a very unique building, as you can see from the photographs and also looking at probably your staff's files, because it's in an R6 zone, which is really contains a number of primarily row houses, but also contains churches, high-rise elderly apartments, cemetery you just heard about at the last meeting. We started this proposal, and if you look at the handout with the original application, which was for a 3rd-story addition, 7 dwelling units, first floor commercial space, which was anticipated to be and could still be the owner's wife's beauty salon. We had 6 artist studios in the basement. There's an existing garage in the back. It shows up on one of your photographs, and that was for 2 parking spaces. We've had 2 community meetings on this, one on site as recently as last week, and we proposed at that time some significant changes to respond to the neighbors' interest in more parking and less exterior alterations. So we eliminated the 3rd floor altogether. We have proposed to tear down the existing garage in the back. It had 2 spaces, put a parking pad which has 6 spaces, which tandem, but 6 spaces, with an addition which would have 1 apartment. So the apartments have been reduced from 7 to 6. The co-working space in the basement has changed into an apartment and is one of the 6 apartments, as well as the owner would like to have a beauty shop, which his wife would actually operate. Now, when we met with the community last week, we subsequently heard that the community, and I don't want to speak for them, but just what I heard from Councilwoman Ramos, that the community was in support of the 6 units. They didn't want any exterior changes. And the church, if you'll notice on your plans, there's a primarily underutilized church parking lot, which is the subject of planning department's letter to you, which I would argue is extraneous to this whole situation. The contract purchaser is not buying the parking lot. The parking lot, I believe, was sold to the church. It's used by the church. And we would like to lease spaces from the church since they're underutilized. Maybe Councilman Ramos has some more information about that. But in the end of the day, we can provide the 6 spaces in the back of the property on an alley. Why is this property unique? As you heard, we need a variance. We believe because of the size of the property that we're entitled to 4 dwelling units, we're now asking for 6, so it's a much less of a variance. This building has, just on the 2 floors, 3,500 square feet, almost 3,600 square feet. One of the things we did was look at 19 properties in that block that are row houses that the R6 also allows. The average size square footage of those houses is only 1,400 square feet, almost 2,000 square feet less than the existing square footage in this building. So we think that building is a freestanding building. It's next to a high-rise. Behind it is an office, a garage that was converted to offices, where one of the variances would be required. If you tear down the existing garage, which is built on the property line, and then put a parking pad, as the plans show you, and a new addition, that requires a rear yard variance. And we think nobody will be materially affected by that variance in terms of the adjacent parking lot, the commercial office building and the warehouse next to it, or the high-rise apartment, which is 14 stories. We believe that the board has the authority under the neighborhood commercial, clearly as a funeral home, as an office building, as recently as a number of years ago, converting to either a beauty salon, which would be the owner will testify to how it would be operated, or another office building, which is shown on your floor plans. The board has the authority and meets the conditional use standards as not having any detrimental impact on the community in any way. We think the variance meets the standard for uniqueness because of the property itself, as I just described. And with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Jones to just testify briefly about his proposed wife's beauty salon.
Very well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so...
I'm sorry, say your full name again for the record.
Charles Jones.
Very well. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
So coming out of COVID, my wife was, I guess, it affected, her view on employment and working the 9 to 5. So she's always wanted to open her own business, and she wanted to open a hair salon. And me being a real estate developer, I'm able to bear that cost of purchasing a property in order to, so she doesn't have to pay lease to a building. So that's primarily the drive to do the hair salon, to be able to give her, what she's been hoping for and her goal. So.
Can you talk about the hours?
Yes, the hours aren't going to be too early, or it's going to close, I believe, at 5 o'clock on most days, and they're going to be closed on Mondays. So it will be, everyone will be out by the time the homeowners come home to be able to park to give up their spaces. Thank you.
Okay, what's, again, I'm sorry, the square footage of that space that you're going to seek to utilize a salon? And what I'm wondering is how many folks it would likely accommodate?
So it's roughly, I think, 1,000.
Either 1,100 or
So,
800.
yep, it's 1,100 square feet, and then plus the 800. But the main floor space will likely be on the top level, the 1,100. So roughly about 6 chairs only, because it's not going to be conducive for patrons to go down into the lower level. So down at the lower level will most likely be the washer machines and stuff for the towels.
How many people will be working in the hair salon?
If there's 6 chairs, there'll probably be the salon, maybe a front desk, and probably someone to help clean up the shop. And even the person cleaning up the shop will probably be contract, so they'll probably just come to clean up once a week.
So that would be the owner and how many?
7, I believe. I'm sorry, 8.
8
But
total.
yes, but the owner would be in and out as a manager.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Jones while he has the floor? Okay, go ahead, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
we'll wait, let's hear what the community has to say.
To swear people in.
Oh, did you guys get sworn in? These guys didn't get sworn in. Question for him. Let's put it this way. You all agree that you've testified, those who've testified, everything on the record has been, under oath?
Yes.
You can go ahead and do it again.
Yes.
Raise your right hands.
Yeah.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you have given is the truth to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Either they will give.
Who'll make that retroactive to what we just heard? Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Thanks to all of you for your time. I'm here in opposition of this appeal on behalf of the community. The community has fought a good fight on this property in the past. They're worried about parking. It's a very, very busy street. It's just up the street from 36th Street where there's a lot of businesses. The parking on Roland Avenue is also taken up a lot by folks in the high-rise who don't have enough parking spaces on their lot. So the main issue is parking. The residents have met with the appellant, twice, and I thank them for your time in meeting with the community. The first one, they obviously expressed the same thing, the conditions about parking. The applicant came back with the proposal that they're giving to you now. The residents are still opposed. They're opposed to a commercial use. Particularly something that will bring in, again, we have the 8 employees and then all of the people coming in to get their hair done or nails or whatever would be taking up the parking. And also one of the issues was in the diagram, you'll see that they're planning on taking one of the walls on the side and taking it down and then expanding it out, which would alter the historic nature of the building. Now, it's not designated as a historic landmark, but we are moving in that direction to get such designation. Also, the residents had proposed that, the appellant could use the building for 6 residential units only, and the church had agreed at the time that they would supply spaces. But they're only going to supply spaces on that lot if it's residential. They will not if it's commercial, and therefore the residents are, would not approve this as it stands because of the questions around parking. So you have my written testimony before you. I sent it really late last night. I apologize. And I'm happy to answer any questions. You also have many letters from community members who had been participating in this process to show their opposition. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for the councilwoman?
Yeah, Councilperson, where's the wall you referenced?
Sure. So if you look at, I don't know if you can see it on these drawings, but the ones that we were, if you just look at the pictures real quick, the second picture there on the side closest to the lot, that they're going to be taking part of that wall down and moving it out so that the units would be larger, and that's something that the residents disagree with as well.
And Councilwoman, what is the nature of the historic character of this building?
Well, we're exploring that now. It has not been designated as a landmark, but it's been there for a long time. So we're thinking that there might be some historic nature, but obviously it's a historic building. It's been there for a long time.
Okay.
It was owned by the church at one point, and then the church sold it, but did not sell the lot, as you had heard from Mr. French.
Which part of this wall would be enlarged?
It would be the brick part.
You can answer.
Yeah.
Whoops, I'm sorry.
So if you look where the porch wraps around, we would build out, we just essentially take the porch out to keep from loitering or anything like that, and the structure would look identical to what it is now with brick. We rebuild it with brick. So it wouldn't look much different outside of taking the.
So you'd build out to this?
Just to that point, to the.
Where the railing is?
To the railing is, yes, sir.
Brick here.
And you said that is to avoid loitering?
Yeah, so.
Potential loitering?
Right, so if like patrons come or the tenants that live there to hang out on the wraparound porch or something like that, or being able to walk out, so a lot of people will hang out on a patio or that wraparound porch, so we're gonna take that away, as well as to give square footage to the commercial space. So, and it would look identical to what it is now with a brick facade.
Can I also mention that the information that I just got today about the 8 employees on at the hair salon was not given to the community earlier. And then Mr. Barry had sent me a possibility of an office use, which the community would still oppose. But it sounds like we're still talking about a beauty salon use.
What was your understanding, if any, of the use of the office space to the extent it was an office as opposed to a salon?
There was no specifics.
All right, good. We'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Barry. Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Let me just address several points. Look at the plan and the pictures, you'll realize that this has been an operating commercial establishment as either a large insurance company or a funeral home for many years with limited parking. And so the owner inherits that. There's no place to put additional parking other than perhaps leasing it from the adjacent church, which we think would benefit the church financially and provide and take cars off the street, either for the houses, the new apartments, or the retail. We think.
The church is not going to agree to that.
Well, that's fine. The church doesn't agree. They don't agree. So that's the context. If we could provide more parking, we would. It's existed without parking for many, many years.
Mr. Barry, when was it last operated with a commercial use, if you know?
I believe just a few years ago, as an insurance office. That's what I remember. I mean, if you look at the pictures, you'll also see that the building has had a series of additions over the years. It's hardly a pristine, historic building. It is an historic building, there's no doubt about that. This is an attempt to clean that up, put in a brick facade, as you've heard from the applicant, that will match historically. We'll certainly work with the neighborhood and the city planning office on the design of that if this is approved. We believe that the request for the variance and the request for the conditional use as a neighborhood commercial meets all the legal standards that the board is required to find. We've made substantial changes. Apologize without having more details that we gave the community. They acted, we don't want retail, so we said, well, what about office? We don't want that either. So we think that's a little too much to ask for. That's why we're talking as the owner, basically managing his own beauty salon in a building that he will own. So we think that hopefully gives the board sufficient reasons to approve the appeal today. Appreciate your time.
Do you have an agreement with the church in writing?
No, we do not have an agreement. This is a verbal understanding that the church was willing to give spaces for residential only, not for anything else. If they would give it to the residential, that would be fine. We would use the 6 spaces that are shown on your plan for the beauty salon.
But that's not, I was going to ask, is the deal, they only get the spaces if they only make the building residential? Correct.
That's what I understand. I think that's unfortunate, but we would then ask for the board to grant a variance for that.
We can't consider that space.
Pardon?
If we grant this neighborhood commercial status, we just can't even consider.
You can't, yeah, I would assume, to be fair, that granted with the expectation that there will not be parking in the church.
Right.
If for some reason you do approve it and we work something out with the church, that's all to everyone's benefit.
And the 6 spaces are those spaces at the church you're speaking
Pardon?
about?
No, they're the ones behind the house.
No, they're 2 different parking. One is behind the house where we would tear down the garage you can see, and then the other would be if at some point in the future.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Is there any public transportation close to this property?
There are bus lines serving the Hamden community.
Are they within walking, walking distance?
Yeah, right. There's a bus stop, right?
So we
Right out
can't
front.
assume that everybody's going to drive. Visit this establishment, correct?
Now,
But it's a good chance that they will.
Yeah.
Question, the parking lot that we're referencing at the you're saying behind the building?
Yeah, behind the building that you
I
mentioned.
think they're going to create that pad.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would,
Knock it down the garage, right?
yes, we would as our negotiations with the community, we were willing to tear down the existing garage that's there. which is a great expense to knock that down to make the parking pad.
It's tandem though, so you have to work it out between the residents, so if he's getting out and he's going in.
Yeah, this is on this photograph. The garage is shown right at the edge of this.
That's in the
There's a
photo
little-
that you just handed
There's
up.
a little alley, and then there's the commercial office building, which is almost, 1.5 stories, just on the other side of the alley. That would be on the other side where the variance would be for the extension of the apartment.
And there'll be 6 side-by-side spaces?
Tandem, so it's on the,
Last page.
yeah, it's on the,
How's that gonna work?
well, if it's used for the, either one, that's something that people will have to realize when they rent a space, and they'll have to make arrangements with either the tenants the apartment tenants or the business tenants. If it's for businesses, certainly they're only there for a short period of time, other than the employees.
And we can work out with the tenants on their work schedules and to place them on the particular parking spots based on their schedules.
I mean, it's not ideal, but it's not, and
Doesn't even seem workable.
Well, practically, it's more like 3 spaces,
Yeah.
more than
it's
6.
3 spaces.
It is not 0.
No, it's not 0.
Park space.
That's right.
In
So those spaces behind the, are you done? I'm sorry. The spaces behind the building will be for employees of the hair salon?
What?
I guess it would depend on the availability of the church parking lot.
Which is not available for commercial.
So you've got 6 spaces, you say guaranteed in the church parking lot?
No.
No.
None in the church
Oh,
parking
none
lot.
in the church parking lot.
Yeah, we can't even consider it if
No, the church, to be fair, we can't assume that the church will provide, we're not here today to argue that. They indicated they would under certain conditions, but we don't want to leave a large part of the building vacant either.
Yeah.
And we think that the 6 spaces do provide, even though they're tandem, do provide a measure of parking for either the residential or the commercial.
Whichever is easiest to coordinate.
That's right, exactly right.
If the board has any questions about, I guess, the zoning code and parking too, they can always ask Mr. French.
The what?
You have any questions regarding parking requirements for residential or commercial, Mr. French is here as a resource as well.
Mr. French, does the code, or in your experience, how has these tandem parking spots, how does it affect the code?
Okay, well, first thing is neighborhood commercial establishments do not have a parking requirement, provided they're under 2,500 square feet. So, based upon the floor plans, I think you've not heard anything that's going to break 2,500 square feet of commercial. As far as tandem spaces go, they are not recognized in the zoning code as off-street parking spaces. So, a parking space to be recognized must be one where a vehicle can have direct access to a public street or an alley at least 10 feet wide without the movement of any other vehicle.
Okay.
So it'd be 3 spaces.
So, based upon that floor plan, it would be 3. However, there is an alley behind this property, and based upon the zoning code dimensions of parking spaces, which is 9 feet wide by 18 feet deep, there's a possibility they could provide 5 parking spaces perpendicular off the alley instead of with access from Rectory Lane. That would be 5 out of a possible 6 right there on the lot, because the lot is 49 feet wide approximately.
Okay.
So that would be a 1 space variance?
Because there's no requirement.
But we have, that's not before us though. That's not on
Well, the alley would not be used as parking space. It
Access.
would be access to the parking spaces at the rear of the property.
And what you're saying, when we're talking and looking at the schematics that appear to be tandem, and from our perspective, 3, you're saying that the dimensions
They could be
suggest it
turned 90
5.
degrees, and you'd have 5 spaces that meet zoning code standards coming off the back alley,
And this is,
instead of using Rectory Lane, which
Right.
is what the garage now uses, and which the tandem space plan you would use.
just to be clear, you're just saying that it's possible, you would, okay.
So the neighborhood commercial, Mr. French said, doesn't require any parking, but we added parking, which could be used during the daytime for commercial, use, employees or customers, as well as 5, if there's going to be 5, because the planning department has laid it out that way, then we would have 5 spaces for 6 of the apartments.
Okay. Any additional questions for the parties?
I guess I just want to get back to this parking. So, assuming that the alleyway could be used for access to these parking spaces, and assuming that you guys can adjust the plan to fit maybe 5 parking spaces, do you guys believe that's possible?
In what way?
For you guys to do that?
Oh,
Are you willing to do it?
Are you willing to do it?
Yes, absolutely.
Keeping in mind that's just for residential.
Yeah.
You still have the issue of the parking needed for the commercials.
Well, no, we don't need parking for,
I know, but in general, in
Right.
terms of.
oh, you're saying that's.
When considering
that's
the
your
neighborhood
Right,
commercial.
yeah, because there's no parking, there's hardly any parking, if any, on Roland Avenue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And it came up at the community meeting that councilwoman and the community are exploring angle parking on Roland Avenue.
Roland Avenue.
On Roland Avenue,
Entire
the
city
way
uses
that 36th Street and many streets are now going toward. We don't know if that can happen or not, but it certainly would
And that
increase
was a
it.
request that was made because of the new houses on.
Okay. All right. Just want to be sure, is there anything else?
No.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? All right. All right, thank you all for
Okay,
your
thank
presentation.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Jones, what was your first name again?
Charlie?
Charlie, and Mr. Barry, your first name for the record?
Alfred,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Following the protocol.
Following the protocol, we're going to
This is when I get
not
stretched.
retire, but we'll deliberate on these matters as they come up. All right?
So
Tend to have live performers.
Not every day, no. So it'll just be a speaker in the radio. We have a Caribbean music station that we play, or we play 88.9, and we play that while people dine during the day. That's not going to be blasting at the decibel levels of a live band outdoors or the steel drum band that comes in from the Caribbean. It would just be music playing while you eat. You don't want music blasting in your ear while you eat curry chicken. All right.
But I just want to be clear, do you intend to have live music played?
Eventually, yes. But again, with restrictions, which I sent as a compromise over to Councilman Schleifer.
That's not part of your application, though, those restrictions?
No, this was after our first hearing. Him and I met, and I sent them an email saying some of the things we'll work on to make sure that the music concerns would be diverted. We also formed a partnership with Lyft. We have some Lyft coupons because Councilman Schleifer was interested about parking, how we're going to manage the parking. So we have Lyft coupons that we're going to give to consumers on the days that we wanted to have the back-to-school rally and the Midsummer Caribbean event.
Are these events that you've had previously?
Yeah, well, we had the back-to-school rally, yes. These other things, excuse me?
what was the reaction from the community at the back?
They loved it. We had fed 600 people. We gave away a couple hundred book bags.
You got it in Arlington?
Right across, yep.
That was in Arlington?
Yeah. There was still concerns, though, like Councilman Schleifer was worried about parking because there was a lot of people that came out to get book bags and came to get free food. And we want to address those concerns. We don't want to just, have people parking on the street or on the curb or on the school lot or anything like that. We want to accommodate those things. So,
What school is right there?
Arlington. It's Arlington, right? Yeah. And I mean, the whole school staff comes and gets lunch from us every day. I mean, they're in support of this. The principal just said she couldn't write something in time for me to get it over here. But
What sort of complaints have you been hearing?
we don't get complaints. It's just the noise complaint if we have a concert from
Is that the
councilman.
only time you get complaints about?
That's the only time. I actually pulled our police report. I got our 911 report over the last, we use the CAD system now, over the last 7 years, and we have 7 reports.
And are they from usually larger events where you guys might have some more people coming in than usual? Are those what?
No, the police statements that I have right here, the majority of them are from one person that my aunt had hired from the community. He had a warrant, and 3 of the calls came in to come pick him up.
Okay.
So nothing to do with the noise?
No.
How does this pick up and drop off of patrons, how does that work?
Well, with Lyft, because we have been approved for a liquor license, so we don't even want people coming to drink and then trying to drive. So what we did was my uncle bought like $2,000 worth of Lyft gift cards, and then the promoter who promotes the Caribbean Fest, he's going to put that on there, like you have to use Lyft to come and to go. So you will get dropped off out front, you come to the back, that's where the outdoor.
How would that be regulated?
As far as what?
How you force it?
Forcing
You
people to
can't,
use
I mean, you can't come without if you're coming to the event and you buy a ticket off the flyer, you have to use the Lyft code to get to the party.
Well, couldn't you park in the neighborhood and go to the party?
I mean, you can do anything you want, but our promotion is going to be, let's use Lyft and encourage. Yeah, we're encouraging consumers, one, not to drink and drive, but then secondly, we don't want too much parking taken up.
Free ride, essentially.
Correct.
Given all that, how do you plan to address parking issues? Kind of take for granted, an awful lot of people want to bring their own cars.
So we're going to have to divert the attention. We'll have to, I mean, we have parking on the street. We have 27 spaces from Park Heights to the corner of our building on both sides. 27, that's 54 people.
They're dedicated to your business?
No. This is public parking. This is where they park throughout the day. It's a commercial space. It's multiple businesses on both sides of the street. And then there's a vacant lot directly across from us that has about 7 spaces. It's first come, first serve.
And this is all just for one event? This isn't for your normal daily play the music outside every day?
No.
How often does this event occur, the one with the flyers that you're going to?
Right. So we only want to do this maybe twice a week throughout the summer months for like 3 months.
It's like 20 times?
Maybe 6.
Twice a week for the whole summer?
No, I'm sorry. Twice a month. I said twice a week. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Twice a month.
This is an event you want to have 6 times during the summer, and then after that, it's just the radio station playing Caribbean music, either inside the restaurant or, if it's a nice enough day, on the 6 tables you have outside.
Correct.
I'm remembering this one now, and do you have an actual agreement with the owner of, was it a big box store or
It's a hair store.
across the street?
I don't think they're there no more.
Yeah, it's empty.
Yeah, it's a vacant. It's all restaurants now.
Agreement to use the parking lot across the street?
It isn't a lot, so
It's a vacant lot. It's grass and overgrown trees and trash that we clean up.
You're suggesting there could be parking there?
No, I'm saying we can park on the street, yeah, in front of it. Correct.
Look.
Along there.
I guess what I'm being.
My issue was his reference parking across the street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, he's saying there's street parking.
Street parking.
You didn't say a lot across the
There's a
street?
vacant lot with overgrown grass and trees.
You don't park on that?
No, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, my mistake.
Park in front of it.
Correct, on the street.
Now, in your application, it stated that you wanted to do still bands
Mhm.
and live bands 2 to 4 times per month. Is that what you're referring to when you say live music?
So again, the live entertainment thing, we're saying indoors, which he spoke briefly on. We want to reinstate what we had before. I wasn't helping my aunt and my uncle. They have elementary education. They probably lost the code of what they were doing, so that's probably how that got lost in the flush. But I'll make sure that I stay on top of the standards that was previously instated in 2013. So the indoor live entertainment, so if there's a steel band indoor or a DJ indoor, there was no complaint about that. But it's when we have the steel band outdoors, and steel band is Caribbean band. They play on steel drums and it makes a unique sound. But we only want to do that at our special events. We don't want to do that every day.
And what do you anticipate? How many patrons do you anticipate participating in these events?
So we were ambitious in our numbers originally, but we broke them down again to accommodate the councilman. I'm thinking for those events, maybe 75 at most. Yeah, I think we were trying to do like 100 or 200, which I don't think parking, even if we use Lyft and Uber, is going to be a little kind of crazy.
So how do you intend to police that?
Clickers,
shows up?
clickers, security,
You're gonna sell 75 tickets.
exactly. And we'll use clickers, and I mean, just for walk-ups and things like that. We don't want to be out of compliance. I mean, if 76 people come, somebody got to go home.
And you've never had any like rowdiness, like a little too much.
Nope.
Rum punch.
I got the police reports right here. We don't have fights. I mean, we're close to a very active
I know.
market of, exactly. And we don't have none of that kind of activity. Been there 30 plus years, almost 35 years. Yep, Montego Bay, yep.
So you'll have to have a ticket to go to the outside area?
Yes.
Can you get to the outside area from the outside, or you have to go through the building to get to?
No, you go outside. It's a
back alley.
It's a gate, yep.
So the question becomes, people running onto your space, you know what I mean? You may have security, I guess, as you're saying, sort of policing the number of folks that show up.
Mhm.
But there's access, ingress and egress to the back from the street.
Where the security would be. It's one way in.
Yeah, there's like a gate or a fence or something that encloses your property, but there's no roof on it.
Correct.
So there'll be someone poised at the door, the entry to that gate.
Correct.
Letting the ticketed passengers only onto the plane.
And you have plans. Do you guys have a plan to like control loitering? Or people who might be, outside chilling at the let
We didn't have a plan. I mean, right now, we don't let people stand out front. That's just, my uncle and my aunt will come out. You have to come in, but they usually try to employ anyone who's hanging around. They'll tell them come in and clean up, and they'll feed them or something like that. But we don't have an issue. The loitering happens more on Rogers and Park Heights. There's not a lot of loitering where we're at.
Any more, anything for the applicant?
And just to clarify, the times you're proposing would be to what times again?
So the special events, we want to probably wrap around 10. I think originally I said 11, but I think after I sent the compromise to the councilman, I think we want to close at 10 on special events. But normal indoor live entertainment, our license goes up to 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. I'm sorry. But the out.
You're on the indoor part today, correct?
Well, he said we can do indoor.
Oh, okay, indoor and
But
outdoor.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's new.
So yeah, the outdoor thing we want to do occasionally, summer months, twice a month. Stop it at 10, only on weekends. That's what we want to do.
I got one more question about the noise.
Are you sure it's one more?
Just one more about the noise. How is sound buffering material gonna help with keep the decibels down?
So apparently it attracts the sound. We have a guy that has a studio who's been helping us with this. One of the Caribbean DJs, and it traps the sound. So the sponge, it's like a sponge.
I just don't think acoustics work that way.
Do you mean outside or inside?
Outside. That's what we're trying. And we also, I also was part of our proposal we sent to the councilman was we'll invest in the decibel reader so that we're not above the ordinance. I think it's like 20 feet or 30 feet or something like that. So we'll invest in that as well to make sure that we're not going across Northern Parkway with the music.
Okay.
Okay. Let's hear from.
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, Councilman.
Thank you. And thank you for hearing this again for a second time. There's certainly a lot to unpack in this situation, the inside, the outside, the seating. I know the original application, 2013, I think you said was 24 seats. This new one was a couple hundred. I can just speak to my experiences with this location in the district. First things first, this location is right next to a church. Right across the street from a school. There's a senior building also right on that same block, and so there already are liquor rules against having anything above beer and wine in that close proximity to a church and a school. But that's another thing. That's not for the BMZA, but I just wanted to point that out, that there's already site constraints for that.
But they already have a liquor license from the liquor board, right?
Which is a confusing fact. Is that beer and wine or beer, wine, and liquor?
We have beer, wine, liquor, tavern.
Okay, so I have in writing from planning that that's not possible. But, you know, if they have it, they have it. But they certainly, you can't be that close proximity to a church.
They were there first before. The church is a storefront church, so there's a chance.
No, the church is, if you're looking at the bakery, it's to the left.
Gotcha. Other direction.
If you go, you'll see the sign out front. Yeah, and the school is across the street, but there's obviously, you know, where's it measured from? Is it measured from the front door to the sidewalk? That's a separate piece. It's pretty close, and whether or not it's allowed or not, but certainly it is way too close to the church that's there and that's been there for some time. And so, you know, the complaints that I receive has nothing to do with, you know, people sitting outside and enjoying food. Got no problem with that. The block that this bakery, and this has been a bakery since the 1950s, and that block is shaking when there's an event. And so this isn't about, you know, one spot versus another. The sound could be heard up to over 2 miles away when it was going on. My district is home to the Pimlico racetrack. We have Preakness every year that has concerts. We have a festival called the Moonrise Festival. The event that I'm going to reference at Montego Bay was louder than the Moonrise Festival. And so it's pretty shocking that that's even possible. But when they had a back-to-school event, the back-to-school event, they did have a permit. I have a copy of these permits. The permit request up to 10 p.m. The flyers for the event went to 11 p.m. And then what they had was they had off-duty police officers manning the security there. And so when the on-duty police officers showed up, because they had gotten countless calls, people didn't know where the sound was coming from, so they didn't call in and say 3602 West Rogers. They called in and said, my house is shaking. And so when the police got to that location, and I was out there as well, the off-duty police officers ran interference for this establishment. And when we spoke to whoever was in charge at the time out there on the street, they said, look, we will end this no later than 11 o'clock. Just give us till 11. I'm telling you, when I say the place was shaking, the neighborhood was shaking. I mean, I parked by the 7-Eleven next door, and I walked in there, and, you know, I mean, it was the building was shaking. And so because of that event, so when we tried to get them to lower the music, they didn't lower the music. It was a free-for-all. There was public urination out there. There was public drinking out there right there on the street in the alleyway because, again, there's no buffers. It's a quite small, if you look from the sky view, it's actually quite a small parking in the back. And so at that event, they ended up going well past then. I stayed out there assuming that, you know, in good faith they were going to turn off the music when they said they would. The music did not end till approximately in the 2 a.m. hour, I believe, if I recall correctly, but it was well after midnight. And the officers essentially they basically said it's hard for us to enforce this. Obviously, they know it's above the Salon ordinance, but they didn't have a decibel reader. So after that event, I purchased and donated out of my own pocket a decibel reader to the Northwest District on behalf of 3602 West Rogers. So that they would have that reading. And in addition to that, the permits that they did have were not followed. They applied for permits as a back-to-school giveaway. I have screenshots from social media showing that the back-to-school giveaway actually was out of stock by 4 p.m. that day, but yet the party continued to close to 2 a.m. And the permits, as a result of that, the health department has actually changed the process in which sound permits are now issued. They gave a 25 decibel variance for events. Pretty easy. You'd come in, fill out an application now. The process is slightly different. It now also notifies the council district ahead of time so that there is an opportunity to address it beforehand. But the noise is far beyond that. And so, you know, part of what was emailed to me, and I appreciate Mr. Leandri's efforts to try to come to some concessions when looking through it and asking for 15 concerts a year, so to say. I brought some of that back to the community. There's really no wiggle room when it comes to, turning a bakery into a club, even if it's only 15 times a year. That's disturbing to the population that lives on the block there and lives in the surrounding neighborhoods. And also just the fact that once there was an issue, the way it was handled just shows that, they're can't fool us twice. Secondly, as far as the cars are concerned, there was multiple tickets written that night. There was cars parked all over the school property, across the street, in the fire lane, pretty much everywhere. You can see that if you requested the body cam footage from the police officers from that night. It was all over the place. And then, of course, you had, after this event, you had people getting into their car after drinking and certainly driving away. I sat, again, in the parking lot across the street, watching all of this take place, trying to implore the police to take enforcement action. And that's when it was brought to my attention that some of the officers that were hired to work there were pushing back on those officers. And so this is a small site. One of the things that was mentioned was about having music outside, just at a regular tone like this microphone. I'm quite familiar with the sound code thanks to this episode that we had out there. So I'm, I guess, now an expert in sound codes. They say if you read something and study something for so many times, you become an expert. So now I've come to understand the different sound decibel levels, between a lawnmower and everything else. And so a speaker of this sound outside, if you were just playing the radio at a cool tone, that's not against the sound variance, although there is a reduced sound variance at this location because it butts up to a residential location. It's not commercial to commercial or industrial. So when you look at the sound code, you'll see the varying decibel levels based on what the location abuts. So even though this is a commercial location, the fact that behind it is a residential street, that reduces the permitted sound. So if they were to go out there right now and play the radio at this tone, they wouldn't hear from me, they wouldn't hear from anybody. But when you go out there and there's a stage that was built back there for performances, and when you have an elevated stage, and you have music that, exceeds 100 decibels, you are going to disturb basically everybody in the entire neighborhood. And that's why 911 received countless complaints that night for sound disturbance. And frankly, I just don't think that this site has the capacity, size-wise, to have such events. Again, it's a bakery. It's not a club. And so, having 24 seats outside for outdoor seating, I don't have a problem with that. I don't think anybody really would have such a problem with that. And if they want to play the radio at a normal tone out there, that wouldn't really impact anybody. But when you have large events, or you have any events really for that matter, it's quite disturbing. And so what I would say is that if there's a special exception at a time where if they're having, a 10th anniversary event, or they're doing something else for the business, I'm all for. I want all the businesses in my district to succeed. They can come and get a special event permit for that, and hopefully at that time abide by those rules. But having ticketed events is frankly illegal to do that without these permits, and that's what's been going on in the past. And that's why I've made an attempt to not only online, but also when it was virtual, but also come out here and talk to you in person, and spent the amount of time I did on this because of the amount of complaints that I received, and because the community has been so strongly opposed to it. And I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
Mr. Leandri mentioned he had provided you some information in an effort to compromise. Do you identify what those suggestions were and why they may not or could possibly work?
Sure. They'd like to have outdoor live special events that would happen up to 15 times annually, primarily in summer months. Outdoor live daily entertainment referred to music being played lightly far below Baltimore City decibel standards, which you don't need a variance for that. If you're playing below decibel standards, you're welcome to go do that every day of the year. And then they said Montego Bay would invest up to $5,000 in sound-containing technology for the outdoor dining area out back of the facility. $50,000 would not prevent the sound levels to be contained there. There is really no way to adequately contain sound levels of that regard. I know every year when the Moonrise Festival or Preakness submits proposals to the city about the concerts, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to contain the sound in multiple different ways, and that is with sound that is going into a grandstand and also is angled downwards with major technology brought in. $5,000, $50,000 would not contain the sound in that small site from staying within that site. So, and then that was basically it. I mean, and they would they'd go until 10 p.m. Again, it's hard. I appreciate the good faith effort, but it definitely is hard to compromise, on that when they had permits that went to 10 p.m. and exceeded that even with the police on site, with me on site. They knew neighbors were complaining. There was, elderly people who were basically out there, in their pajamas, like, what on earth is going on over here? And it's really hard to even say that that's acceptable 15 times a year. And that's, it's not a position I want to take, but when you burn the neighborhood that you're in that much, there's really, that's why they won't come out and support that. And I'm sure it's a great business that, should continue to succeed. And if they want to do some outdoor dining, I have no problem in the world with that. I think the only issue that I'm bringing to your attention is having events. Is having events that go there, having outdoor live music. I want the business to succeed, and I think by giving them some outdoor seating, that would help them increase revenue, and that would be great. And hopefully they'll improve that outdoor space because it's just an exterior parking lot that abuts to like a paper alley. And if they want to improve that, that's great, and add some seating there, that's great. But these events, this is not an event site.
Any questions for the councilman?
No, I'm good.
I don't have any.
All right. Councilman, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Leandri, you have the final word, sir. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I want to just say that we do have community support. We have the merchants. We have the school. We do have my uncle had a petition with 200 signatures for us to get approved by the liquor board. So we have a lot of community support. We feed.
Is that in the record?
Say that again. What's that?
The petition, is that in the record?
It's on. We submitted the list to the liquor board. We don't have it. I mean, I don't know if you guys have access to the petitions at the liquor board, but yeah, we gave them.
You don't have a copy of it or anything?
No.
I can get one. I mean, I could just call the liquor board and get it.
Here's the issue. If you want the board to consider what you're talking about, the best method is to provide it so we can make it a part of the work.
Understood. If you guys remember, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when we were doing the virtuals, we had people up, on every virtual that was willing to, testify on our behalf. They couldn't make it out today.
I understand.
But we have a lot of community support, police, firemen, people in City Hall. We have a lot of support.
It seems from the councilman, what we've heard today, though, is that you haven't been a good faith partner in the community. At least that's their position.
Right.
Is it just that one event?
I mean, that came from him. He's the only person that complained about it.
No. I'm asking you. Other than the event that the council person described, can you think of any other reasons why this event, why that event stuck out in their mind as a tipping point? It sounds like that was pretty bad, but I guess my question is, have you done any other bad things? And you don't have to admit to them being bad, but
No. I mean, it is what it is. We want to work with the community, and I consider him a friend. So I'm going to be transparent and honest. I think that was the event that maybe brought discomfort to him and his supporters.
I can ask. Probably it's probably a better question for me to ask you, and I should have asked you this before.
Mhm.
But is it just that one event?
So look, I mean, there was a stage built for a reason, and that's to have multiple events. As far as the business is concerned, and to answer your question, the business is not a nuisance business in the sense that the business is, I don't have any problem with the business. The business provides a good product, and I appreciated being in the district and serving the community. I'm strictly here talking about allowing that business to have events, because when that has happened in the past, it has been a tremendous disturbance, and this is not a site that is fit for that. And so, there's kind of a few different things that we're talking about all at the same time, and I don't want, one thing to get brought into the other. And so the outdoor seating for dining is not a concern by anybody, because the business is not a concern. It's the events that occur there. And a lot of these events, when they occur, like Mr. Landry brought up, there's promoters who are involved. And so the event becomes less about the venue that's hosting it and more about the promoter that's hosting it. And so the promoter who's hosting an event, whether it's this location or any other location, doesn't care what happens the next day in the community. They care about how many tickets they're selling and what's going on in that event. And so the business can have the best intentions in the world, but if we permit them to have these events moving forward, it really becomes out of their hands what's actually happening.
So, but what you testified to and described was all of that happened at one event, right?
I mean, there's been multiple events, but the story that I had laid out for you, that was at the back to school giveaway. That was in response to the event that he had mentioned.
And how long ago was that?
I'd have to check. I can check the permit. There's one in.
No, I want to know specifically.
The one that he brought up, the back to school event, was in. It was, I believe, in 17. Let me check.
It was about 5 years ago.
Yeah, it was August 27th, 2017. That was the back to school event that he was mentioning. But there's been a July 4th stuff since then. Yeah.
But I understand that. I don't mean to cut you off. I guess I want to ask, whichever one of the two of you can answer this, is probably you. The events that you want to do twice a month, those are not the same as this back to school event. However, it is in the same place with the same restrictions. Am I correct?
Yes.
Or the same physical space restrictions?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And can I say something else?
We don't necessarily have to have an event we just want the availability, the possibility, the chance, the opportunity to do an outdoor event. We fed a lot of people that day. We gave a lot of book bags.
And
So
you partied all night because you did such good things.
I mean,
I'm not saying it's wrong.
no, I understand. It happened, and that was 5 years ago. I wasn't there to if I was there, and again, I would have talked.
My next question.
Yeah.
Are you using the same, is it the same people that planned that 5 years ago that are going to be responsible for?
No.
Okay.
No. So right. So the person that he had an issue with is my aunt's partner. He runs the bakery part. We have a restaurant now. I don't know if you guys have been there lately, but we built a restaurant next to it. That's what the other approval was for the liquor license, et cetera. That place we've never opened it. It's never been used. As far as the outdoor thing, we were trying to do a good thing for back to school. And I wasn't there to regulate it, but if I see my friend, I'm going to accommodate the councilman. I'm not going to allow music blasting until 4 in the morning.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I really don't know the answer. But is that partner from then still a partner?
He still runs the bakery part.
Okay.
But he doesn't do the special events. The liquor license and everything is in my aunt's name.
Okay.
I have.
Which is probably also because, at the time when that happened, and I think the July 4th event, it was on the city's radar across the board, which is probably why, having it in a different name was important to do. Because look, it got to everybody's attention because there was obviously was a capacity issue, and the fire marshal's involved in that. The liquor board was well aware of that issue, so I'm going to have to look into how that permit even got issued with the site constraints and with that. But then also the health department was involved in that because they had issued a 25 decibel sound variance for that event, which of course the sound was far beyond that, but they had issued that as well.
So I have a quick question because some of the factors we have to consider. So you said there was a July 4th event after that one. And how long ago was that? Was that this year? Or?
I don't know. I know that when there's been attempts to have future events, we had found out about them and prevented them from taking place because of those experiences. And so, yeah, it's been a little bit. And then obviously the past 2 years have been COVID. And so, there hasn't been any recent one, if that's what you're asking. There hasn't been really any recent events like this in general in the past 2 years. So going back to 2 years ago, was probably the most recent one. Maybe it was two and a half years ago. The one that we're referencing is
5 years ago.
I mean, okay. There was no event. 2 years ago, right before COVID, was 2019. There was no events in 2019.
No, the event that you're talking about was 2017.
The event that we're talking about, the back to school, but there has been other events there.
That's some of the questions I had.
Well, just one more. So you referenced from the 2017 that there were people outside. I guess elderly people that were outside. Now, now from what I can see, there are residential houses next to the restaurant, and you mentioned that there is a senior citizen building not too far away. Where were these people that you saw outside that were complaining in reference to where this is located?
So it was if you're in the back, further up the street, so basically right across the street from the school.
Oh, okay.
Like you're looking at the main entrance of the school on Google Maps, and you just turn around. It's right there. There's homes right there.
Okay, I understand that. All right.
Actually, one of those senior homes, actually, unfortunately, this past year, it was a year and a half ago, had a bad fire. But again, there's a lot of elderly people who live right there in that neighborhood, who've been in that neighborhood for decades.
Okay.
And just to remind the board, there's two issues before you. It's this one issue, live entertainment, and you have inside and outside. Just want to make sure, because I feel like we got lost a little bit, so just want to remind everybody.
One last question. Are you opposing the inside and outside, or just outside?
I'm opposing having any live entertainment events at this location. So what my understanding is that there's also a request for outdoor dining. I'd love for every restaurant in my district to have outdoor dining, this one included. And so as far as that piece is concerned, I support having seats outdoors where people can sit and enjoy meals outside. And again, like Mr. Leandrew said, when they want to have music playing out there from the radio in compliance with the sound ordinance, there's no problem with that whatsoever. I'm specifically just talking about live music events, DJs, and having bands and others out there where you have these ticketed events, which lead to the crowds and lead to the situations that we've had in the past.
And can I ask one question, Mr. Okay.
Mr. French.
Mr. French, for like a small radio, it doesn't look like.
Is that live entertainment?
That qualifies live entertainment under the definition. It doesn't seem to be applicable. It looks like the definition would be a musical act, karaoke, theatrical, but nothing like a small radio,
disc jockey.
right? For our purposes.
Yeah.
I've got the code. I'll
That's
read
the
the
zoning
definition
code.
really quick.
Disc jockey.
Quoted there.
It's more about amplification.
Okay.
I think the key is the amplification as much as anything else, quite honestly. Yeah,
Okay.
she's going to look up the specific citation.
So, you said these questions are for you right now. You said that you haven't had any experience with any complaints from neighbors in the past, except from the councilman here.
Correct. There's no violence, no fighting,
in the record,
no shooting.
You have a letter signed by the Glen Improvement Association. Do you have any idea why that community association would be on record?
I don't. They never come across Northern Parkway to see what's going on there.
It's across Northern Parkway.
Correct.
Right? That's the Glen. Arlington is the neighborhood that you're in. Correct.
Correct.
And we don't have anything on the record from Arlington.
No.
Community Association about this property.
No.
I'm trying to assume here. Do you know of any of your patrons in the past when you've had some of these special events crossing Northern Parkway, maybe to find parking?
No, nobody's interested in going across Northern Parkway. We wish the music wouldn't travel across Northern Parkway, so we wouldn't have this issue.
So the entertainment live is defined in the zoning code as, entertainment live means one or more of any of the following performed live by one or more individuals, whether or not done for compensation and whether or not admission is charged. So 1, musical act, including karaoke. 2, theatrical act, including play, review, or stand-up comedy. 3, dance. 4, magic act. 5, disc jockey. Or 6, similar activity. So again, it's live, performed live.
So Pandora Station playing could be fine. Playing 92Q or WEA Saturdays will be fine. But having a disc jockey, a DJ with turntables, no, that's live entertainment.
Right.
And that's why we're here today.
Correct. But again, we are talking about having special events. That's why I sent it to him in a certain format. Live music, if we have live entertainment where we have a DJ, we're not having a DJ to blast, big speakers that he said was rattling the whole world. We're talking about a DJ playing music while you dine.
For these live events, you'll have to get a special permit. In the past, have you had to get a special event permit for them?
Well,
All of them, correct?
My aunt's partner, yes, he did. He got a permit for him. I don't know. I'm new to the sound part. I'm new to that, but I know 5 years ago he did get special event permits.
And so, can you speak to anything about the process, about what enforcement activities have happened around those permits, about being in conformity with the restrictions of the permits? Have you guys done that in the past? Councilman, if you know, have they been in conformity with the permits in the past?
So I have a copy of the permit right here. I'll read it to you. Back to school banquet, 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Indoor event. Square footage of the area, date event, hold on. 8/27 is August 27th from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Indoor event with food, liquor, and beer or wine will be served. So the permit that they had was for an indoor event. Then they had a temporary exception from the health department to increase their sound levels by 25 decibels. And that also expired at 10 p.m. And the flyer from the event says that it ends at 11 p.m., but as I mentioned, it went well past then. And also, just economically, you don't hire live entertainment or a DJ to come out and play for 24 people. I mean, that kind of would increase the tab per each bill by a lot. So.
What's the date on the permit?
It was August 27th, 2017.
5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the same owners involved, and how long have you been involved in the
Helping my aunt, but I don't think I need
3 years? Okay, so during COVID there hasn't been events, but
Excuse me. I'd like to ask the executive director, I'm a little confused by the paperwork. We say, we're looking at conditional use, live entertainment, exterior,
Right.
and we're looking at, what else?
Interior.
Okay, live entertainment interior.
Right.
Okay. Councilman, and you said you're against, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I know you're against the outdoor entertainment. What was your statement about the indoor?
so if you have an indoor event, an entertainment event with, again, I don't have it on me. Maybe Mr. Landry has what the fire capacity is for the indoor dining. But again, with the back parking lot, with the stage set up that way, certainly these events would spill outside if that is one of the conditions, that any event indoors will remain entirely indoors. Certainly, I think that that's probably a reasonable approach. But again, there's still, even with that, there still is parking constraints, which is a smaller factor for the hours that he's talking about, going. But I mean, going to 2 a.m. again, that changes the atmosphere from a bakery to a club, and it really changes that. And as far as the police reports are concerned, I do have an Excel spreadsheet, and I believe I forwarded that over to the board, Katie. I believe I sent over the calls for service for that block, and
I think you did that the last time.
Yeah, I sent it over for the last one, and there was, there's a lot of narcotic sales on the corner over there, and other activities, and so again, not to say that the restaurant is involved in that. I would not indicate that at all. And again, I think that if they wanted to do some outdoor seating, that's fine. But when it comes to the events, these large gatherings, these large events with live music and liquor to late into the evening, yes, that's what I'm opposed to.
Anything else from anyone?
No.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen. Guess we're gonna deliberate on this.
So we have two conditional uses.
Conditional use for live entertainment inside
Inside.
and conditional use for live entertainment outside.
I think the outside live music is detrimental to the welfare of the neighborhood. I have problems with the proximity to dwellings and churches, and I think it affects the character of the neighborhood also. So I'm definitely voting against the outside live entertainment, and I think we should put a condition on the indoor live entertainment that is contained to the interior.
I like to think, but what if this same restaurant was in Federal Hill next to a bunch of houses and churches that was asking the same thing? There's no parking there either. There's no, like, how is this restaurant different from Mother's? That's not a good example, they have a parking lot. But, I don't know, the Charles across the street.
I think Fed Hill was like that neighborhood is known for that. I mean,
But it
this in
wouldn't-
Arlington right here,
But it
it's
didn't start
quite
that way.
residential.
But it didn't start that way, so like,
I don't know that, but yeah.
It's a big leap.
Good point, but I don't think that that is where this neighborhood is. It is, so that's the character of the neighborhood. It seems like it's a church right down the street. There's a school across the street.
But neither of those buildings would be in operation, churching or schooling, when any of this was going on. It's 3 different times of day and week.
But then you also have, like you said, but on top of that, you have houses on the back of it. You have houses.
I'll stand up so you guys
You have houses to the side of it. You have houses across behind the school.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of
If-
different than Federal.
but those people were those people, I wanna know if that was their complaint or if we're giving them complaints they don't have.
The complaint is people and noise. You know, if there were, the thing is this, can we put a restriction on the live entertainment outside?
You mean
That
like
we
allow
think
the
is like workable for the decibels, for the noise, and for
Something
the
that they're allowed to
patrons.
follow?
Yeah. Is that even possible?
Could we give them
that's-
one event a season instead of 10 total?
Can we even,
Well, I think if they want one event a season, they go ahead and get a permit.
a special event permit, right?
If they want,
For any event.
if they want one event every month, they go and get an event
Special
permit.
permit. So, but I don't want to tie the hands of the owners of this business that they can't use that outside space if they do want to have a DJ. But let's say they want to have a DJ in the outside space. I'm struggling with how reasonable is it for us to say that you're going to keep it within the decibel limits that the city
I think
requires.
that's
the
pretty
code
hard.
requires.
I think the history of it is pretty hard. Notwithstanding that it was 4 years ago.
5 years.
5 years ago.
Different management, different party planner.
But they can't control the soundproofing, that whole concept.
No, you can't soundproof outside.
Doesn't make any
No.
sense. And I think, you have specific parameters in terms of what the control is on outdoor use and outdoor live entertainment.
Yeah.
You have a permit that's issued for when you want to do it.
Yeah.
I think there's a possibility and the means to go beyond. Okay, you're allowed to have live entertainment outdoors.
And honestly, if they get a permit to do it once every quarter or however, they don't have to compromise with any of this stuff. They could get it till midnight and have decibels higher than,
You can do it as you need it, when you need it, but
way
within
more
those
free.
strictures and within those parameters.
Or the permit can be turned down based on
Right,
opposition
exactly.
from the neighborhood.
Right,
Yep.
and so you have a running opportunity to see how they're performing
Yeah.
if they get the special permits, and you're making a record.
Yeah, they can create a record and maybe come back
they could, yeah.
for outside.
Interestingly, yeah.
If
they
they can
could
show
come
that
back.
they're good faith.
Because they're not
Permits.
precluded from getting out. There's a process in place that they've utilized
Yeah.
to get the outdoor.
Just
live
doesn't mean
entertainment.
they've, but also enforcement, I mean, the city has to do better about enforcing their rules.
Happens when you left off duty
They're
police
probably using this
officers
radio
become
and playing
bouncers.
music, but you don't need this for either, so.
I think I'm ready to go.
Let's go down the list then.
This is,
So we are finding that it would be
Inside cool.
detrimental, contrary to the public
Laid it
interest.
out already.
Yeah, Bill laid it out.
Yep.
Oh, he did?
Yep.
Okay, Bill.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to find to show that a particular use at a particular location would have adverse effects above and beyond what are inherently associated with this use. So you have to, it's something that is specific to this property that makes it unusually bad for this kind of.
Isn't it, it's,
I mean,
How about the operation of the conditional use to be detrimental to the welfare and maybe even the safety of the neighborhood? There's the issue that I laid out before, the proximity of dwellings and churches, and affects the character of the neighborhood. I mean, that's the third time I've done that.
yeah. Thing is, I'm not quite sold on that because
on the back part?
there are
Yeah.
other places, a bar or a restaurant, a tavern with outside seating and dining that also has lots of entertainment. And I mean, isn't this what they always bring? Is this above? Is this inherently different than what any other tavern with
I
outside
think we're in this
seating
zone.
has?
Within this zone, I think within this zone is the key. So if we were at Fed Hill, it'd be one thing, but here we're in a zone.
Yeah, it's
where
Arlington. I live in this neighborhood, so I know it very well.
There's a lot of different
Yeah.
bars and taverns.
No. This is an outlier. This particular use.
Okay.
Okay, that's.
So that would
Yeah.
fit, that's
Yeah,
above and beyond those inherently associated
Yeah, I
with
think that's.
outdoor,
Beating
what
a
do we,
dead horse.
outdoor, thank you, outdoor live entertainment,
Beating a dead horse.
irrespective of its location. So no matter where you put outdoor live entertainment in the zone.
By zone, you guys talking about
No, that's not.
R8
that's
or
backwards.
so you talking about neighborhood?
No. Huh?
You guys are using zone, or you guys using?
I'm reading the
C2?
code.
It's C2.
C2, right?
So C2 is the underlying zone.
Right.
So as Becky was saying, look at, you apply
As it
the
gets higher,
test
it's more.
to this location. So the zoning code says you need conditional use in C2. So that's why they're here. So however and now you use those tests to look at it, not necessarily in comparison to others, because we don't know what those other zones are.
Right.
And whether or not they needed board approval for those or not. It's at this location, this use, that impact.
I mean, here's the thing.
This was denied in 2013.
It's the music that would. This is tough. It's tough.
I'm still going through the Schultz test in my head, but if everyone else is.
Basically, so, you know, think about the C2 zone in general.
Sure.
Usually it goes up and down, it's a kind of commercial corridor. You have to find facts at this location that show that it's not appropriate at this location. So it might be appropriate in other places within the zone, but at this location it's not because X, Y, Z, because maybe the proximity of
Church
the
has-
church or the school.
So if it was on Park Heights, this is a entirely different question. If it was that bar that's on Park Heights that has the music and
So,
everything
I think we can
versus
find them.
Rogers.
I think we can find them,
Totally
but I don't
different.
think the church and the school are it, because no one from the church or the school has been, neither the churches nor the schools are operational, and everything that the congressperson talked about was human beings living in their houses. It wasn't, I don't think that we find that because there's a church and school nearby that there's adverse effects above and beyond if no children or church people are there when this outdoor live entertainment's happening.
But I think what he said was,
So I was just gonna ask Katie, because in the past, I think the board has said no to a conditional use based on the operator and the patterns over time.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
I don't wanna
So
give them a
it's-
pattern.
It's,
I'm
yeah.
suggesting it, I'm not.
so uses run with the land, right? And we do, so you look at the history of the land, you look at the history of the use, and make a determination as to whether or not that history is gonna project going forward, no matter who the operator would be.
Huh.
But if we have violation history, or if you have factual history of the operator at this location, which is what happened with 200 North Monroe. So remember that operator had
The one-
outstanding notices, the corner store.
He was the one that told the lie about the police officers
Yes,
coming
he
in and out of his.
completely- Yeah, all of
Mhm.
that. So that was so if you remember 200 North Monroe, the argument was that location, that structure, that operator put the community at risk. And he lied directly to you.
Yep.
So there was that.
It's live
So
music.
history does impact, can impact your decision.
Well, I only mentioned churches and schools, I guess, but,
Testimony from the councilman is that people's houses were shaken.
Yes, I think that's the.
Yeah,
And
and
so
the-
it's the community as a.
I mean, that gotta be some loud music. I mean, Pimlico and that Moonlight Rise, I believe, is an EDM festival. I mean, come on.
That's why I asked him who was outside. He said there was people outside. He has to block over.
I don't know if the music's ever been louder than the EDM festival.
and the code actually says, in considering the proximity of dwellings, churches, schools,
Dwellings, I think.
public structures, and other places of public gathering.
I think the councilman painted a very clear picture of the impact of live entertainment outside, albeit, through various
At
instances.
this location.
At this location and how it presents.
Yeah.
I also think that there's pretty good evidence that this is very difficult to police.
It is.
When they're out there.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yeah.
On
Now-
purpose.
Now, this individual is
Newish.
newish. I mean, the owner of the building is still the owner of the building, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's the partner who was doing that is still a partner in the business for the bakery.
Beyond
No,
those inherently associated with.
I think is demonstrated on the record that there are adverse effects.
Loud music and rowdy patrons. That might be easier to handle further south on Park Heights Avenue. But Rogers itself is, that area is, it's
Residential.
churches, it's a church, school, and houses.
There also
Totally different.
There also was testimony about, again, didn't associate it with this business, but what's near it, what's in proximity.
Oh, yeah, it's an open air
Narcotics
drug
trade,
market on the corner.
There, which is
track,
put
a
all
liquor
that
store.
together, and that makes for a tremendously, potentially volatile situation.
I'd like to make a motion that we move to vote.
Second.
So,
I think
I'm
right.
finding those things in the record. So, now, the two things on the vote. The first is the indoor dining, indoor light and live entertainment. I'm a yes for the indoor live entertainment. Timing of the,
10 PM, right? 11 PM? No, not what time it is right now, but
what they're asking for.
their profile, their,
Well, they've got, they're open until 2, they got a liquor license.
yeah, and and then it's until 7 on Sundays.
10 PM, indoor.
11, the liquor license goes until 2. I
Right.
mean, and it's indoors, and you can shut the door and keep people inside.
Okay.
That's the most they can do. Honestly, they can't account for for every person who's gonna walk down the street in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and obviously, it's got to be kept inside.
Yes,
Yes.
and that's I
Part
think,
of it.
yeah, you can't spill out into the parking lot like
Yeah.
that.
So we're indoor?
Indoor, I'm in.
Ah,
Yes, the indoor to 11 PM.
To whatever they said in their thing.
Their application
Whatever- yeah,
is,
the application, I have words. What were the times in the application?
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Oh, Martin has it?
Well, the times they placed on the application were till 11 PM on Monday, till 11 PM on Tuesday, 11 PM on Wednesday, 11 PM on Thursday, although they left that blank, but I think that's what they meant. Then 2 AM Friday, 2 AM Saturday, and 7 PM Sunday.
I don't think that's unreasonable, given that they have a liquor license and it's all indoors.
Mhm.
I'm a yes to the indoor, but I think we should probably add language, redundant, I guess, but restricts it only to indoor.
Yes.
It doesn't bleed outside.
I'm with Bill.
I would approve the application for indoor live entertainment. I don't believe it would adversely affect the community at that location above and beyond anywhere else in the district.
In the zone.
I mean, in the C2 zoning district.
okay. Those times okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, now outdoor.
Oh, I didn't hear Otis.
just to be clear, so is the indoor capacity is 100 to 200 people?
I don't think it's
Oh,
that
no,
big.
No.
Was that-
It's smaller than that.
I hear that.
That was proposed for the outdoor seating capacity
So
initially.
what is the capacity for indoor?
Hold on, I think he's got it on here.
75.
He's supposed to have it on here.
Chris, do you need to plug
The
in?
rating.
All right, then I think your thingy is a waste, so unplug that, this thing.
Tablet.
Yeah, that's the one.
Don't worry, I don't usually have words
Thingy,
either.
that thingy's not working.
Words escape me.
It looks like he put 100 maximum authorized
We can also
occupant
just
load.
say
That's
by
the,
whatever
it's the
code
fire
is.
rating.
Yeah, fire.
Yeah, we can say fire rating, yeah.
Yeah.
I would just say no because about the maximum amount given the history of the location, but other than this isn't changing.
That's great. No for other. All right, moving on.
All right.
Indoor, I mean outdoor.
Outdoor, I believe the evidence demonstrates that use of outdoor live entertainment, as proposed, would have an adverse effect above and beyond those inherently associated with the locations within the zone.
I vote no for the outdoor based on the reasons I gave before, earlier, whatever.
I'm also no for the previous city reasons.
I'm no for the outdoor with the understanding that this does not preclude this establishment from having outdoor events. It's just that the approval they seek will have to come on a case-by-case basis instead of specifically from this board as a blanket kind of authorization. And that in the future, they're permitted to reapply for the same conditional use, maybe establishing a track record of better management of permitted outdoor events.
The earliest they can reapply is 12 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm also no due to, because I believe it is detrimental to the welfare as well as public interest, contrary to public interest. Also that considering the proximity to dwellings, churches, and schools, public structures, I think that is and the history of this property that cares for the neighborhood.
I wish Adam had stayed to see this process. I don't love it.
No, this is.
Jesus. Me too. Is that?
Yeah.
There's two more, right?
Yep.
Can I ask?
Yes, you gotta go.
Okay, yeah, I'll be right back.
Yeah, we all need a break.
All right, we have two more to go, guys, so hang tight. We're going to take just a quick break, and we'll call the last two.
All right.
I'm gonna take us off the record, we're off the record.
Yeah.
You just didn't vote on it. Excuse me.
Yeah, gotta move all that. Gotcha. Yeah, we'll have to take care of that. Not sure.
The ones on the first floor still there?
First floor, all the way on the other side, there's a room on the left.
Tucked in.
Oliver, how do you spell your last name?
Witt, W-I-T-T.
No H, okay, thanks.
No H.
And it's Rebecca?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
You enjoy your evening. Take care.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
So this is the only opposition.
Or did they sign in?
No.
All right, so then we just,
Apologies for that.
yeah, we just read it into the record and go from there. That's the cathedral. Yeah. Hey.
I've eaten every snack I brought, which means.
Okay.
Not right now,
Yeah.
for next
For next
meeting.
time, okay. Might need him to come up the ramp.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good, you're good.
He's gonna have to come up this way. He's got some stability issues right now. All right. Give it to Salon. No, we've got, yeah, we have Cathedral,
So we got Cathedral.
which is second to the last on the list, and then back to Falls.
Well, most of the time, I'm in federal grand juries.
Oh.
So.
It's a breeze.
Sometimes it's a bit of a reprieve from the stuff I hear on the regular.
Yeah. So there's entertainment value here for him then.
Oh, yes.
Interrupt quite a bit.
I think the information.
You weren't necessarily here for the few little sections with the chairman. A couple
really?
times over who was supposed to tell people. Each other. I'm not kidding. He stormed out one
Right.
time. 'Cause
The
he and-
court reporter did?
Yeah,
Or the-
'cause he and,
Right. No, I hear you. Yeah, the application, the change in the application will help us immensely.
I mean, you weren't screaming at each other. But
Yeah, no, he had a temper, I remember.
You know what you could do? You could take the flash drive out of this one, put it in there.
Yeah.
That might be the easiest for you. Manage it up. That's a tricky one. I have the-
oh dear. Get the wrong end.
I do think the information they're asking for will help a lot.
Hang in there, guys. You
We
only have
can,
two more.
we can make this work.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just streamline it is gonna be the core questions. Boom, 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 boom.
Maybe she's in
Probably put a
the,
restriction
on the phone.
itself,
I'll
so
just
you
tell
don't
James
make
in the
it
other room.
Right, right.
Side right?
The cathedral,
Yeah, and everybody.
isn't it?
It's like I said, Mayor,
I don't know why sometimes PDFs don't pull up for me fully.
Well,
Chairman had-
hopefully we will resolve the issue
Okay.
with the laptops. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
yeah.
I gotta bug them to get those back. So if I can get
Okay.
those back this week, then we can hopefully schedule time to go and stop by the office, log in, set it up, and run with it.
For sure.
And just a reminder on fall about the limited,
Issues.
The limited issues, yeah, when we get to that.
That's the last, right?
That's the last one, right? And we had, I feel bad for this next lady on Cathedral. We got an email opposition this morning. No one assigned in to testify in opposition, so she just had to see through all that, so.
This here?
Yep.
The next
Cathedral.
one?
Yep, so we'll just read.
Yeah, this one last on the agenda.
Why this one last?
Why is this one last?
The number of people.
Yeah, all those folks
Who
who were
protested?
Falls
Mm-hmm.
Road.
Who? Let's not cut into her hat.
We're just gonna wait for spring.
Oh, no, happy this afternoon's gonna be.
When's the bridge gonna open?
Well, no idea. When did they move it back formally
They
to?
moved it back.
You know what's interesting? We were walking the other day and I'm looking at the bridge. I'm like, okay, the old bridge obviously had the guardrail, but a walking path for pedestrians across the bridge. I knew there was some discussion about making a footpath.
Okay, everybody, I think we're back on the record. We have our last two appeals.
All that time they took for the bridge. I don't see it.
It's the same thing.
I'm sorry.
Are you ready, James?
Yes, I am. Guess we're not.
Me, you're waiting on me.
Okay. All right, calling case number 2022-158, 515 Cathedral Street, Kimberly Dukes. Is the appellant?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is a request to
Good
use.
evening. This is fine.
This is a request to use a ground floor as a hair salon, correct?
Yes.
All right. Do I have any reports from planning and staff?
Planning Department reviewed this application, notes that this property is in the Mount Vernon Historic District, and therefore notes that if approval of this application is granted, it should be subject to the condition that all exterior changes, including additions, demolitions, alterations, and signage, are completed or installed in accordance with an authorization to proceed that would be issued by the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
So again, this is to use the ground floor premises as a hair salon in an OR2 zoning district. So the request is for conditional use neighborhood commercial personal services establishment. So originally this was on the consent docket, but we received an email in opposition this morning, and I'll go ahead and, it doesn't appear that anyone else has signed up to testify in opposition, so I'll just read this quickly into the record. Let's see, wanted to let the board know my objection to the proposed appeal. I live across the street at 510 Cathedral, one of only a couple of homes on the block. Most are short-term renters. It's difficult as it is for actual residents to find parking on this single block, an island of sorts in which a bunch of very large historic homes, lots of people because they have been divided up, to use would draw many cars as a designation instead of strolling retail. And 2 hours, the current non-residential restriction would be sufficient time for patrons to get their hair and nails done. This would make parking for residents even more difficult. Furthermore, the evening hours aren't restricted to non-residential at all, so that would compound problems at this destination. If our area parking restrictions were till midnight, didn't allow 2 hours for non-residents, then I would not have a problem with this use or this appeal. Let's see, I trust that since the posted date of May 17th that I have submitted this in time. I noticed the sign was posted and hand modified to say May 10th. Unfortunately, you all have apparently removed the remote virtual options for attendance, and she could not attend in person. So that's the only thing we have for opposition in the file.
Okay. Ms. Dukes, tell us about your project.
So I am a hair. Should I place her on the road?
Yeah, swear up,
Oh.
sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm a hairstylist of 32 years, I'm sorry. I have been in Baltimore City. I've had about 17 years I've had my own salon in Baltimore City. I've been in Charles Village for the most part of my career. For like the last 17 years, I had a salon in Charles Village, 2 different salons, one on 25th, one on North Charles Street. Actually, twice on North Charles Street, 2 different buildings. Nonetheless, I came across a great landlord whom I've been doing business with for the past 4 years. Unfortunately, the area began to decline. And so I began looking for another space. And then my landlord explained to me that he had a space in Mount Vernon. So we proceeded to swap over. I had another young lady who worked underneath of me, who I basically, I let my lease go so that she could take over that business. When I started the process for Mount Vernon, we realized that it was not, when I went to put my permits in, my use and occupancy permit, then we learned that it wasn't zoned. I'm sorry, I'm really, really nervous, but.
Relax.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we, learned that we were not zoned. It was not zoned for a salon, so that's when I came through with the appeal. Nonetheless, like I said, I've been a hairstylist for 32 years. I've been in Baltimore City. I pay my taxes. All my permits, everything is up to date. My licensure, everything is completely up to date. I'm always, I have one stylist and I have an assistant. I have a pretty small business, and I'm pretty well established. I know in the back of the building, we have a parking pad that can at least get about 4 to 5 cars back there comfortably. I am, like I said, I'm established, so we're not there all day long. I work Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. My part-time, the other young lady that's there with me, she works part-time. She comes in like Sundays and some Thursday evenings. So basically Thursday evenings and Sundays, which she would park in the back and her clients will park in the back. We pretty much are rotating. This may be a little bit too much detail, but I'm not like a person who does weaves and a whole lot of braids and all that. So what I'm doing is in and out. I have a lot of older clients, more mature clients. They're coming in. Some of their children are dropping them off because they're elderly, and again, like I said, I've been doing this for 30-some years. So I pretty much have a schedule as to when I'm going to be there, how it's going to be done, and how quick we're going to be in and out. I also have a 9-year-old, so I need to get in and do what needs to be done. But what I would like to say is that I have been in the city and doing, like I said, paying my taxes and just wanted to have a decent place to run my business. And when we came upon Mount Vernon, when my landlord told me about it, again, he's in full support. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. He's out of town, but he's in full support. He has allowed me he's waiting for me. He's holding the lease for me in lieu of today, what the outcome is for today. So whatever we need to do, like there won't be any changing of anything on the outside or anything like that. It's his building. I don't need to do any of that. I don't own it. Just a simple sign in the window where I can peacefully run my business without the activities that I was dealing with for the last 2 to 3 years in Charles Village. I did talk to a few of the people in the neighborhood, one of which is the director of sales at Hotel Indigo. And ironically, when I first went there, when we were getting the building together, she stopped past and introduced herself and welcomed me to the neighborhood. And she was saying how we could work together because they have weddings that come in. And a lot of times wedding parties are looking for a hairstylist. So, I talked to her. So she signed. I just asked her to sign something just stating that, she was okay with me coming. I spoke with another young lady who lives in the building, and she in the same building that I'm going to be in, and she signed as well just to welcome me. And it's a business that's right on the corner of Center and Cathedral, and the owner's name is it's Cozy Corner, and the owner's name is Miss Lee, and she signed as well. So I just wanted to go through and introduce myself to them in hopes of being able to come and run my business until I can retire.
Wonderful. Question, the parking space you say that's in the back of the building, is that dedicated to your building space?
Yes.
Are there signs that let other people know that so that they don't park there?
Yes, it has a private property sign, and parking, if you park there, you will be towed. And, when I roll through the neighborhood, it's so many parking spaces, so many small streets, so we don't necessarily have to use those spaces. But again, we're in and out. It's a business, so we're in and out.
Okay. Got it. All right. Any additional questions from Mr. Hoops? All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Okay. I guess we can save this to the end, or we want to do it now?
Do you want to take it, we've hers, and then one more that was uncontested?
Right.
That we could probably do now before we get to.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, sure.
Harvey Street.
You wanted to deliberate on that one and this one really
Yeah.
quickly, and then we'll do falls and knock it all out?
Yep.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you all for your patience.
All right, do you want to start with this one since we just heard
Sure.
it? And then we'll
Yes.
go backtrack?
This is conditional use, right? Nobody's.
Just to remind everybody, this is neighborhood commercial conditional use. There is no parking required for neighborhood conditional.
Okay.
For a conditional, neighborhood commercial, in an OR2. So, it's just the conditional use, and the only opposition we received was that email today, and that email stressed parking. Not necessarily for the business. And reminder on the conditional use, Schultz v. Pritz, reminder for neighborhood commercial, that it was,
I can talk this one out if you want.
Sure,
Yeah.
do it.
Sure. The BMZA may approve this conditional use because it would not be detrimental to endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. It's not precluded by any other law or an urban renewal plan. It is not contrary to the public interest, and it is in harmony with the purpose and intent of this code. As it pertains to Part B, we have considered all of those. She's not changing the size and shape of any structure, nothing about a traffic pattern. There is off-street parking, but that's not before us, but it's still a consideration, I suppose. The same thing, she's not changing the outside of any of the buildings, so I don't think that most of the ones in Part B apply. And then as far as Part C, we're not denying it, so we don't have to, well, in the reasoning I'm giving right now, we are not denying it, so we don't reach Part C. Is that good enough? So I am in support of this conditional use as a hair salon for those reasons.
Oh, yes, vote.
I'm in agreement with all those things. But if we had to reference Part C, what we would probably conclude is that
That it has no adverse effects at all.
No adverse effects, irrespective of its location in the zone. No, I don't see any bad effects.
Yep.
I vote yes for the reason stated previously.
Yes, and I adopt the reason stated as well. That was so well stated.
Thank you.
All right, and the one we deferred
yeses.
previously was,
That was the pergola. That, I think, is on the.
Did you just exhale?
good luck to you. Oh, it was the pergola.
That was, Harvey Street, 630 Harvey Street, 2021, 169 with the pergola, right?
Yeah.
Which is somehow conditional use and not a variance.
All right, I'm gonna tell you it's a weirdo.
Yeah.
It's the code. It took me a while to figure this out. So what happened is, it's a conditional, it's essentially, it walks like a variance, talks like a variance, but your standard is conditional use for the application. So normally, to go higher, it would be, you have to show uniqueness, hardship, things like that. But when the zoning code was passed, the intention was that you would not have such a high threshold for this particular building height based on certain conditions. So when you look at the code, the street frontage has to be so wide, the properties have to be so big in order for you to qualify for this conditional use height. Right, so we're going 4 feet above the 35-foot, and you don't apply the variance standard, you apply a conditional use standard. In that, it is more.
I took the last one, so one of y'all could take this one.
Right, so Becky,
Not there yet.
I'm struggling, but it's not, it's.
Basically, the planning department wanted to use the easier standard of conditional use instead of
Right.
variance.
So basically, is it detrimental to the community? Is it,
Oh.
like all of that you look at for conditional use? But you're looking at it for.
A 4-foot variance.
4-foot variance.
I
You're
can-
looking at
I
it
can
to
do this.
increase the height of a structure. Does it in any way, impact the community in a way?
Health, safety.
Health, safety, all of that kind of
So I
thing.
think we start with Part B then, because it's about structure, right? That makes
Yep.
it easy. So if you look at conditional use approval standards, Part B, it says, so we're considering the size and shape of the structure, is that technically it is a 4-foot variance to a 35-foot building. It doesn't affect traffic patterns, and the little that it did affect the surrounding area, he went with his neighbor and kind of showed them, that they could still see the Domino Sugar sign, right?
Right.
It's not close to any, it doesn't matter if it's close to churches and schools and houses, because it's on a house. It's the same accessibility for emergency vehicles, same accessibility to light and air, because his doghouse is connected to his neighbor's house, so it's the same height as theirs. There's no cultural or historical landmarks, nothing with access roads or drainage. It isn't directly in the character of the neighborhood, because that's what all the houses in the picture look like. And all those master plans and codes. So considering all of those things, I would say that the BMZA can approve the conditional use for a 4-foot pergola on top of a 35-foot house, because it is not detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. It's not precluded by any other law or urban renewal plan. It's not contrary to public interest, and it is definitely in harmony with the purpose and intent of this code. And in the event that we were to deny it, I don't think we can deny it, because there are no adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with a pergola in this zone.
Okay. I'm a yes as to that.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes for the reason stated previously.
I'm a yes as well. Then I would just add very briefly, there was no evidence from the opposition presented.
Correct.
Yeah, untested.
Yeah.
And I'm a yes for all the words I just said.
All right, last one.
All right, I'm going to call the case of 2021-213, 4001 Falls Road, Lucatelli, the appellant. This is a request to use as a restaurant, dining, live entertainment, and off-premises catering. And let's see if we can,
Do you want to remind everybody why we're here?
yeah, but we need to talk to who all the everybody is. So
Okay.
all of our opposition for this? Okay. Do any of you intend to testify?
Yes.
Okay, you need to stand and be sworn.
All those here to testify, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we are back here, and the scope of this hearing particularly has been narrowed for both sides to new evidence, evidence that was not available during the first hearing. I think that evidence specifically relates to an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the Community Association, and a newly signed contract for off-street parking. That's my understanding, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's hear from staff and planning, unless I've said everything I need to say for you.
For the record, Planning Department has not seen the MOU or any other additional information since the last hearing, so the Planning Department has no comment on this particular hearing today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. French.
So I'm going to, again, repeat pretty much what we had for the last hearing. So the request before the board today is conditional use live entertainment. So again, this is a reconsideration. The prior hearing, the board denied this request for live entertainment in a 2-2 vote. We had a 4-member board. The motion for reconsideration was granted for the evidence not available during the first hearing, again, specifically the MOU with the Community Association and a newly signed contract for off-street parking. Many neighbor emails in the opposition file, mostly relating to concerns about parking and noise. The last time we were here was November 30th, 2021.
Okay.
This is the one with the garage.
Say again.
This is the one with the garages.
Okay.
I'll see it here.
Mr.
Lang, L-A-I-N-G. Lang. Lang is my last name.
What's your first name?
Wayne.
Okay. You have that, Mr. Reporter?
Common spelling for Wayne?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So what can you tell us today about, the new evidence?
The new evidence, it's not necessarily new. I followed the protocol and went in front of the Hamden Community Council.
Yes, sir.
On the date prescribed for the general meeting. It was remote. There were about 49 people on the call. I'm assuming they all were neighborhood members. And I was encouraged by the president to present at that point at the general meeting, and they will take a vote the following week, which was done. And in addition to a letter recommending me proactively by the Hamden Community Council and the Hamden Village Merchants Association, here the MOU that they executed and I affirmed as well.
What's the date on the signature?
10/4/21.
And this was after making numerous adjustments to the initial plan. As far as an outdoor stage, there's no outdoor dining. There's outdoor dining, which is going to be terminated at 10 p.m. There's 6 tables outside, but that's not related to the actual live entertainment. All live entertainment, karaoke is indoors.
Is this the first time you're presenting this? You haven't previously sent this MOU to BMZA, have you?
It was sent previously, but it was not stipulated at the hearing. We did not mention it or focus on it at the initial hearing because I went back to try to continue the community. I think the board said, hey, let's get these guys to go back and sit down. And I went back. I think I've met with the community as a whole with the HCC and the councilman on 4 or 5 different occasions. I've met privately with various individuals. I've done everything that I could to try to, even although I've had a signed MOU, to try to mitigate it, to go back to the community to say, well, what's the issue? And each time I've expeditiously, I've contacted the architect and said, hey, they want this change, they want that change. And I've made numerous changes to accommodate them on top, previously to the MOU and after the MOU.
Okay, and with regard to the things that are not contained in the MOU that you've compromised on, has that been reduced to writing anywhere?
So the parking specifically, the owner of the garages, which is located on 4001, he also owns 4013, which is a 2,000 square foot lot.
Is it an open-air lot?
Open-end lot, correct. That's just an empty lot right now. It's boarded up on both sides by a fence, so it's just either you access it from Falls Road or the alley behind it.
Is the lot improved at all? Is it?
No, it's concrete. It's improvement. It's a concrete lot that's just empty, vacant right now. I have a letter of intent from the landlord indicating that it's his lot to utilize the lot for parking as needed. In addition to that, I have a signed lease from the landlord indicating that he has decided to raise the 7 garages to the right of the building and turn those into 8 parking spots as well. And this is the signed lease indicating such that I have the right to those garages and to be utilized for additional parking. Also, I've been in communication after the hearing with a lot. There are two auto mechanics on 41st Street, which is 1 block away from there. Both of them are closed at 5 p.m. or one is closed at 4:30. The other one is closed at 5. That's 1100 West 41st Street. He has 15 parking spots that he's allowing me to use, and I have email, and we're working on a letter of intent because he wants to see these parkings are going to be a necessity for me, rather than trying to put me in one gentleman wants to do a minimum 6-month initial lease. So there's no point in going through all the attorneys to do all of this, but I have email indicating that both of them are willing to allow me to 2/3 of our business is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, okay? So they're not there on Friday after 5 PM. They said as long as these cars are gone off the lot by 5 AM on Monday, well, I'm fine. They're going to have signage saying allocated for the establishment of 4001 between these times when people pull in. Again, this is a block away. It's 15 spots at 1100 and 1035 West 35th Street. They have about 25 spots, but we only requested 10 on the eastern side off the lot. Again, 2/3 of our revenues will be derived, or 2/3 of our customer base is on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
And those lots will be available from 5 PM until Monday, 5 AM.
Okay, so you said 50 spaces at 1100 West 41st?
Repeat that for me?
50 spaces?
15.
15.
15
okay.
parking spots.
At West 41st Street?
Correct. At 1100 West 41st Street, one lot has 15 spots, and then the other one on the other side has another 10 parking spots. Both.
Okay, 25 parking spaces.
Correct. And this is just emails indicating from both of those locations.
I have a question about 4013 Falls Road. That lot, which this letter of intent indicates would be available as of first day of August 2022.
Correct. Because I don't intend, we have a lot of things prior to that to do. My anticipated opening date for just the restaurant itself, or the restaurant with the live entertainment component, won't be until August or September is what I anticipate the opening date.
And what's the capacity at 4013 Falls Road?
10 parking spots.
So all these papers add up to about 35 parking spaces?
If we count the 7 at the site itself, and then another 10, that's 17, and then on Friday and Saturday, 15 at 1100, and then another 10 at 1035. So what is that, 17, 20? I would say about 40 parking spot inclusive, approximately, if you're counting just Friday and the weekend. Again, the 17 spots are available during the week, but the remainder, the 2 lots on 41st Street, are available just on the weekends.
Okay.
I don't recall, were you asking for live entertainment inside the building and outside?
No outside, no.
Just inside?
Just inside, correct.
What is the capacity inside?
I have 1,950 square feet of seated indoor seating.
Indoor seating?
Is that square footage or?
Square
No, square footage. And do you know how many, have you laid out in your, just remind me what the seating capacity is?
We're looking at 100.
100 people?
Yes. And I also uploaded, because we reconfigured the layout a little bit for various reasons, and it was uploaded to the site, but just the current diagram of the layout.
And again, these documents have not yet been provided to the BMZA?
It was uploaded. It's just a question. I don't know how the system works, but I bought a copy just in case.
Okay.
So for the proposed karaoke, it is?
It's essentially, it's a restaurant that I am seeking an exception to use for live entertainment. So I'm opening up a restaurant as of approximately August.
So for the live entertainment, how do you propose managing the noise coming from the establishment?
Noise-wise, as far as the space, if you look at the diagram, we have various methods for this. They're going to be 10 karaoke rooms or indoor.
Is noise Are we just here for the memo of understanding and the parking?
Okay, cool. All right. I'm sorry, I forgot I wasn't here in November.
Should I continue, or?
Yeah, sure. No, go ahead.
You don't have to,
You don't
that's
have
not in
to.
consideration. Yeah.
Looks like. Let me just, again, for purposes of the record, what I have is a signed memorandum of understanding that's dated October 4th, 2021. At least that's countersigned by the Hamden Village Merchants Association. You don't have that?
We do have that in the file.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else on the new information that?
Again, I wanted to stick to what the parking. I have numerous things on the noise, but that's not in the scope at this point.
Okay. All right.
I just want to make sure I understand you correctly. So, the 1100 West 41st Street is 11 parking spots. That's the weekends.
Correct. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And then
1100 West 41st Street.
okay, and then 1035 West 31st is 10 spots.
Correct, on the
That's
weekend.
weekends as well.
Yes.
And then the lot would be.
The lot is during 7 days, if you will. We're only open 6. And then what the landlord also, if you look at the diagram, there are 7 garages that are not being utilized that the landlord has indicated that he will be raising in order to facilitate an additional approximately 8 parking spots
Okay, at your property.
at the location itself, yes.
So during peak hours, how many parking spaces do you think will be exclusively available to your patrons?
17 if during the week, and as I said, approximately 40 plus on
Peak
Friday,
hours,
Saturday.
no?
Yes, on peak hours,
Yeah.
because peak hour is relative, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is
That's when you get
when
most of your business. That's, I'm sorry, that's what I should say.
80% of our business,
Yeah.
yeah. And just to I don't know if I've operated, had a liquor license in the city for the last 23 years. I've also operated a live entertainment venue 4 blocks from this location on 36th Street in a C1 for the last 13 years. I've had music there from 10 to sometimes 2 o'clock. Mostly it was 10 to 1 a.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Never had one complaint. Police has never been called. The Hamden Community Council has never issued or said that despite having residential behind me, next to me, and actually above, because the 2 units next to us have residential above it, never had any issue whatsoever in the last 13 years of having live entertainment at this location. Live entertainment meaning bands and so forth.
Mr. Lang, just for the board's recollection, can you again describe for them the layout? Because this was, I think, there was a ton of testimony on noise, and the board recalls that. We have our 2 board members who also watched the previous hearing. But I just want you to remind them, because we're just making sure that we get all the information to the board that we need, looking at the required amount of parking that you need for the 1,900 square feet. But it's individual garage bays that you have proposing seating in. So it could be 4 people in a bay, up to 16 people in a bay.
It's 6 to 8.
6 to 8. So 6 to 8 people in a bay,
Correct.
and you have 9 bays?
10.
10 bays. Okay. So I just wanted to remind the board of the structure, right?
Seating,
of,
so
of the layout.
everything is encapsulated in indoors. We have the courtyard area, which is an outdoor area for outdoor seating. And then what we have done is each garage, if you look at the diagram, the garages, we pull back from the perimeter about 4 feet from the perimeter to have, that's where the door starts to enter each individual garages. So you have a 4 feet, basically you have an overhang initially. On top of that, we have a canopy, a 2-foot canopy extending from the perimeter of the garage out out into the courtyard a little bit. So basically, if you open that door of each garage, that sound, instead of going vertical, it has 4 feet to kind of go through the air within that area, and then another 2 feet on top of that before it actually goes out into the air. As far as the interior, each garage, the walls, interior and exterior, as you know, sound travels through vibration. So on the ceiling, our intent is to have bat insulation in the cavities on the rafters. On top of that, we'll have, instead of putting the sheetrock directly on the rafters, we'll have what they call channel. It's a channel that has a rubber component on top of it, so it goes directly on the rafters. Then that sheetrock goes on top of, is attached to that, so there's no vibration leaving. On top of that, we'll have what is called it's green glue, but it's an adhesive product to basically put another layer or a separation on top between the 2 layer of sheetrocks. And we'll be doing similar for the vertical component. The separation between each garage starts with like a 2-inch gap, air gap, before we do the vertical, any studs and so forth. So you have an air gap in between, so there's no sound can vibrate through. On top of that, we'll have bat insulation, and then we'll repeat similar what we do for the roof, is we'll do the first layer of sheetrock, and then to create an additional barrier, we'll have the adhesive before we apply the second layer of sheetrock. In addition to all of this, there's a curtain on the interior. The front facade is actually going to be soundproof glass. And I've also spoken to the sound technician about each room. There won't be any, there will be a sensor on the door to access it. So as soon as someone the music, there will be no audio. As soon as someone opens that door, the door is ajar, the audio is muted. So there's none of that, okay, someone is coming in, you're gonna have someone performing while that noise is going. As soon as the door is ajar, the music is muted, 100%.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you have any plans that show that, what you just described?
The muted, I mean, it's straightforward technology. As far as it's just a sensor, I'm happy to go back to my music person and to provide that, but he said it's not a problem that's simple. You basically have something similar to what you would have in a security system attached to the door, and once that's broken, it's just that would be connected directly to whatever. I can have the speakers just muted, but in this case it will be connected to the iPad that's controlling the volume.
I was just thinking that what's not a problem could become a problem.
Repeat that for me?
I was just thinking that what is not a problem to you could become a problem. Never mind.
All right, any questions for?
Not anymore at this moment. But
Okay. We're going to turn our attention to the opposition. And again, just want to caution to not be repetitive in terms of those opposition points, but go right ahead, Councilwoman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to this committee. I want to also thank residents for staying so long. Thank you very much. And for all of you, for all of the work that you're doing. A couple of, if I may ask a question first, and then go into my commentary. I have two questions. One is in a previous hearing, this board voted this down. And is only reconsidering today the parking and the MOU. If you decide to change your mind, are you changing your mind on the noise on the live entertainment as well, or just on the condition of the parking? Because you know, in the last hearing that I had, you took two things separately. In this one, they are being considered separately, but it was one application.
So the MOU coupled both, and the parking was only for the parking. So I believe that both issues are up for reconsideration to the extent that the conditional use to function for the live entertainment is impacted by the MOU, is before the board.
Okay.
And the MOU and the new parking agreements as to whether that would impact the denial for the parking. And I'm going to point out for the board, I just asked Mr. French this, that for off-street parking facilities, the alternate shared parking arrangement must be located within 600 feet of the lot line, use, or structure. So the separate shared agreements have to be within 600 feet of the lot line of this location, or there would need to be a variance request for further than 600 feet before this board.
Okay, thank you. And then that leads me to the second piece, because you'll probably hear, and I'm hoping that my residents in this community who are here will be able to talk about, because many of them will talk about the potential noise. And hopefully, because we were able to hear from the applicant, that, you know, also the residents should be able to talk about that. So I know that we're reconsidering just the two, but it seems like it's all part and parcel, particularly with the MOU.
If I could interrupt you just one moment, Councilwoman. I just have a question for you, sir. In the memo of understanding,
Yes.
At live musical speaking acts, it says no live music requested at this time.
No live, correct, no bands.
No bands.
So I think that you have live entertainment and then you have karaoke as two separate.
Your zone comments are different.
Okay.
Yeah, like we read the definition of live entertainment earlier, and it includes karaoke. So the board could limit live entertainment to a particular type.
All right. Very well, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. So, and I thank you for answering those questions. I appreciate it. You will hear from residents about the issues that I think are going to be arising from this establishment in terms of it is right next to a residential area. It is right next to a residential area with children. It is right next to a residential area with elders. And so it will have an impact on this community substantially. The second piece is on the MOU. You will notice there is no termination clause. So we have an email from the former HCC president, and the new president is here, saying that they rescind their support of the project, because after the MOU was signed, which many of us would argue was premature, the community continued to negotiate with the applicant and were still not satisfied. And therefore, HCC said, we rescind the MOU, except there was no instrument in how to do that within the MOU. Normally in a contract, there's a termination clause. That wasn't the case here. So it was a mistake in terms of not being able to have any sort of instrument to rescind the support of the community association. And that is an important factor when introducing the MOU as evidence. And we can certainly supply that particular email, which I believe was actually sent to Director Byrne prior to the first hearing, that was the case, that the community association was rescinding their support. On the parking, thanks to Director McGinnis, who is now Director McGinnis, he did a very thorough zoning review of 4013 Falls Road. And at one point in time, it was connected to 4011 Falls Road as sort of their parking area, and it has not been able to be found that that was ever disconnected. So that the applicant would still have to prove that that lot is not part of 4011 in order for it to be used. Affirmatively find that out. because Mr. McGinnis, who, as you know, is very detailed, could not. So that is something to consider for that particular lot. And I'll yield to the residents to talk about the other pieces, particularly Christina Way from the Community Association. So we oppose this, continue to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to be want us to be mindful that if most of the commentary is about noise, again, we just want to avoid having 30 people talking about noise. So, thank you. Tag, you're it.
That's concerning that we turned it down on noise earlier, correct?
Were you making a pun? Never mind.
Okay. Thank you to you all. And so Christina Way, I'm the current.
Just swear you guys in.
Oh, I was part of the group.
Okay, that's right. Can you spell your name for the record?
Sure. Last name Way, W-A-Y. First name Christina, C-H.
Thank you.
With an A at the end.
Thank you.
All right, so here as the HCC president, so what you just heard about was under the former president, and the email was directed also from the former president. In my capacity as the current president, I sought to bring the parties together, so thanks very much to Mr. Lang for his time. I met with the immediate residents, separately to understand the nuances of their concerns around the appeal, to see, okay, where can we kind of, what flexibility is there? And then brought together Mr. Lang and Luke Telly as well. And sought to find some common ground to work this out. Unfortunately, we did not really find that common ground that I was seeking. So you will hear today from our neighbors that they find that the parking that is being suggested really actually doesn't meet their needs. I would encourage you to go back to the board resolution that was so detailed and I think really quite clear on this matter. So your own words, honestly, were pretty compelling, I would say, on this matter. So if there are any questions about the MOU, I'm happy to take them. I do want to be quite clear that we're pro karaoke in general. It's just this particular location that is not suitable. And we also are I would just say regretful that this is kind of within the Hamden community. So Mr. Lang is, as he shared, is no outsider. This is kind of an internal conflict.
Okay, so let me just confirm, are you the president, which organization presently?
The Hamden Community Council.
Okay, and when did you become president of the Hamden Community Council?
Effective January 1st.
January 1st, 2022?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, and this, the rescission, or the attempted rescission of the MOU.
Was with the prior.
Right, so I'm holding a copy of the MOU that was previously signed that the
Yes.
community, HCC at least, says
Yes.
We are seeking to rescind.
So it was the prior president who sent the email to the director.
And Ms. Byrne, I just want to be sure you have that information.
We do.
I have a question. What changed to make you want to rescind it?
That is such a great question. I believe that it was an inadequate consultation. So we had a conversation with the at the general meeting, and I believe that we should have taken an additional step to meet with the immediate neighbors, which happened subsequently, which is where, when that happened, our prior president realized that the terms of the MOU were not acceptable to the immediate neighbors, like I said, we're not opposed to karaoke. We're, not opposed to the appellant. This is just a situation of the location just being an unfortunate one.
Does the HCC, Hammond Community Council, purport to represent the interests of the neighbors that we're talking about, who were not included in that review, I guess?
So, I mean, that's our whole reason for being, is to represent the interests of the neighborhood.
Mr.
So
Lang have known that? Would he have known that?
the
you
full
guys-
neighborhood?
No. Yeah, he knows you represent the full neighborhood, but would he have known that you guys didn't consult with so?
No. So what Mr. Lang previously said, like, he followed the process, that is a fair statement.
Can you speak to, I guess, the principle of fairness? Like, a contract is a contract. He negotiated in good faith. And then new leadership comes and it seems like he's, I don't want to say blindsided, but like, can you speak to how you don't think, how like that shit, how that factored into you decided, hey, we want to go back to the table?
I couldn't really speak on behalf of the prior president, but I think, I think the will of the immediate residents is overwhelming and quite clear. So, I think, so Hamden is representing, I think it's something like 6,000 families, something like that. So that may be incorrect, but this is a very particular corner of Hamden that you all have found to be unique in your resolution. Like I said, I think your own words on this topic really were quite compelling.
And as far as the parking, I guess we'll speak on that.
Yeah.
But is it simply, is that enough space or is it too far? Symbolize that.
I think that's best left to our folks who can tell you, because they live right next door, and boy, do they have thoughts on this topic. They will be able to best represent this. But I would say the overall sense is the way this particular neighborhood is laid out. It's really just a couple blocks we're talking about. Folks will park in front of their houses before they would park in these other places. They'd be walking across people's yards, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, like I said, it is in fact covered in your board resolution. So you can refer to your own words on that, but certainly the neighbors can provide thoughts on the actual impact to folks, how it would work.
And I guess I have some more questions about, as far as precision of the MOU.
Yeah, there is no mechanism to do so.
How was that communicated to the applicant that you guys decided? And when was it, I guess?
Yeah, great question. I don't actually know how that was communicated.
Sorry.
If someone else knows. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, it's in an email that was written to the BMZA and all the parties involved on November 24th. So everybody was attached to this particular email, 2021.
And the MOU was signed when? November 2020?
10-4.
October. Okay, so like a few weeks later.
Right, because it was what I believe to be prematurely signed, and then there was more negotiations. There was an attempt to actually put in a new MOU, but that didn't work out, and so the HCC decided to rescind.
Okay.
So just for clarification, the only MOU we have is then the October 4th MOU. There is no new MOU.
Okay.
That's correct. I was hoping that we could, in fact, come to a mutual agreement, but that was not possible.
Was a new proposed MOU presented to Mr. Lang?
No, because we were looking for the terms under which we could come to agreement, and we did not find that common ground.
Did we do what?
We had this October 4th MOU at the last hearing. I believe when we reviewed the motion for reconsideration, I think the board was under the impression there was another MOU. That was
There
not
is
in
none.
evidence.
Oh,
So I think there's some confusion there. So there's only one. That was the one that we had the last time. There is no new MOU into evidence. So I think when we reviewed the motion for reconsideration, I think the board was under the impression that there was another MOU.
Unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yes, that's the basis.
And we're here because you guys, just so I'm having it clear, you guys tried, couldn't work it out.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
We're actually here because the appellant appealed the decision
Mhm.
based on those two factors.
Okay.
So we were ready to be,
Right.
we're done.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Councilman.
Do we have anyone else who is intending to speak?
Do folks want to speak about the specifics?
Absolutely.
Did you want to take them in order on the sign-up sheet? How do you want to do it?
I don't think it matters whoever wants to testify first and
Sure.
just,
Go ahead.
you guys seem to be an orderly bunch, right?
Patient bunch, patient bunch, that's for sure.
Only 5
They look rowdy to me.
So, my name is Michael McVicker Weaver. I live at 3952 Hickory Avenue.
Spell that for the record, please.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
MICHEL. Then the last name is McVicker, MCVICKER dash WEAVER.
Okay.
WEA.
That was a mistake. Yeah.
Thank you.
The hyphenating was a mistake.
So the noise is not actually why I'm here today. I moved to Hamden in 2016, and one of the reasons that we chose Hamden was because it had a vibrant economic community. There were a lot of shops, really cute restaurants that we could enjoy within a short walking distance. But also chose it because it wasn't a nightlife community. And my wife and I at the time were planning to start a family. We have now started a family. We have a 3.5-year-old. And I live, the back of my property is adjacent to the property that's in question. If Mr. Wayne were willing to close his business down at 10 p.m., as he did his 13.5 restaurant, which were the posted hours, I probably wouldn't be here objecting today. The parking is an issue. I live on Hickory Avenue. There's no zoning for parking on that street, and so we struggle with the businesses that are on Falls Avenue to find a place, but it's still, it works. I'm afraid that it wouldn't work, and it wouldn't work into the wee hours of the night, given his business proposal. I'm also worried about the other things that come along with the noise at a establishment like this, and people passing through my neighborhood, through my yard, just the type of environment that it would set up in the neighborhood that I intentionally chose because it wasn't that kind of neighborhood. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Lisa Lunt, L-U-N-T, and I actually wanted to make a comment on the MOU that, because you had made a point that said that a contract's a contract, and that maybe Mr. Lang felt sideswiped or blindsided by the fact that they were retracting it. Well, a lot of the residents felt blindsided as well, because I had submitted it for the first zoning meeting in November. I had submitted to Kathleen a copy from the previous president. The Camden community members had a meeting, a Zoom meeting in September. And, there was the same issues, all the concerns, the noise, the parking. And we were told that there was going to be a meeting when we would have a chance to vote. And then all of a sudden we found out that the HCC, the former president, that they had a behind doors meeting and they voted. And so our input, we didn't feel like it was heard. And so that was one of our concerns, is that we still feel like, that's why it was rescinded, because we felt, and I asked him, and part of that the screenshot of the communication I had with the former president I submitted for the first meeting, so I just wanted to consider that as well.
Thank you for
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I live next to Michael McVicker Weaver. I won't spell that again. My name is Amanda Fouché, Amanda, last name Fouche. Everyone calls me Shay. My backyard is also adjacent to the property in question, and I also have a question about, he introduced a new parking area for parking garages, which I believe is literally behind my house. Are those the parking garages? You said there were 7 new parking garages that you had an agreement with. Are those the parking garages adjacent to the?
They're in the alley, correct, adjacent to the alley.
Which alley? The alley that, so here's the property, you have the alley here.
There's only one alley.
It's the alley that's perpendicular to the street alley. So
All right, there's 2 that's perpendicular. There's like one there, and then there's one on the other side. Okay. All right, just making sure, because we do have 7 garages there as well, which I've been trying to talk to that guy. Anyways, doesn't matter. Basically, the issue is that is a one-way street. It's a very narrow one-way street. The property address says Falls. The opening of the business is not on Falls. It is on 40th. Okay. There is parking on either side for just the residents and one way. But those car shops that he was alluding to and other commercial areas on Falls, the employees that work there cannot park on Falls Road during many parts of the day because that is a main road. They cannot park there. So therefore they park in front of our houses during the day. And we don't have that availability to park in front of our houses. The hours for his institution are saying open from 10 a.m. until 2 a.m. on the weekends. And then during the week, 10 a.m. to midnight. That leaves very little time for us to be able to park, whether it's in the morning when all the other businesses arrive at 9 a.m. or it's at night, all the parking spots are taken. Hickory itself, to actually get to his business, you have to go Falls, Hickory, which is the road that we live on, which is one way, then take a right, which is the one way to his building. If you cannot find parking there, you have to go all the way around, okay? My issue is not only will there be no parking for us, but that these people will have to park far away and then walk through at these late hours, 2 a.m., Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which, he stated his other business was open late. It was not correct. His posted hours on his other business, which was on the avenue, which is a commercial street, was open till 9 p.m. on the weekdays, and only 2 days of the weekend were open till midnight. So his hours are far later than he's stating, and except it's not the commercial street of the avenue. We picked in that area, people that live on that block, we're across from a graveyard. We have the best neighbors. We thought we would have the best parking. Turns out you move there, you find out, hey, actually employees do park on this street, so therefore we don't have the abundance of parking we would like. But we were like, oh, this is a quiet area 4 blocks from the avenue. Not the case when you have a club, right? A karaoke bar that's open late into the night. That's what that is. That's a nightlife. We have kids on this street, myself, other people, we're working EMS, nurses. We work night hours. We have to sleep during the day. And we hear karaoke from, that's a backyard party every single day with no parking. That's pretty much all I have to say. Besides, I know this isn't really an issue that we've brought up before, but because of that one-way street, all of it would be blocked whenever they have to get new liquor, new food, the trash disposal. It would be there would be nowhere to go. And with that trash being left out constantly, we've had a really hard time with getting rid of rats in the area. I feel like we did in our backyards, but it took like 2 cats, and like a lot of work to get the trash out of that area. We do trash cleanup on our block. We volunteer all the time for everything that blows on Falls Road. So their trash sitting outside brings all the rats back, let alone blocking the traffic in general, because not only is it a parking issue, there's going to be Lyft and Ubers, and they don't just go around the block. They sit there with their hazards on and wait for people to get in and out. There's going to be nowhere to go, because when you get to that intersection to make the right towards that business, you either have to go left, which is a one-way, straight, which is a one-way, or right, which is a one-way. And no matter where you go, if there's an Uber waiting on someone, it's going to block the traffic, and then there's nowhere to go. So, anyways, thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you. That's good.
Hi, my name is Julie Smith, S-M-I-T-H. I live at 4008 Hickory Avenue, and I am approximately 525 feet from the proposed establishment. What I would like to read is from the resolution that was signed by this body on February 8th, 2022. The board finds that the establishment, location, construction, maintenance, and operation of the proposed live entertainment will be detrimental to and endanger the public health, safety, and welfare of the surrounding communities. Furthermore, as far as the C2 zoning, the board further finds that the proposed use does not meet the Schultz standard, as the proposed live entertainment would, in fact, create adverse impacts to the community above and beyond those normally associated with live entertainment, irrespective of the location within the zone as detailed above. My question is, what's changed? And I will offer the answer of nothing. There's nothing changed since this resolution was signed on February 8th of 2022. The alley that keeps getting referred to is where there's going to be new parking spots, or 4013 will empty into the alley. That alley is actually a fire lane. So if people are coming and going trying to park in and out of that alley, or there's going to be Ubers or Lyfts pulling up, or we just know people are just going to park there, that's a fire hazard. It is a designated fire lane, and it's blocked at the end. So if, God forbid, there's a fire at the end and a fire truck needs to get up there, it's not going to happen. The karaoke rooms, all 10 of them, they open to the outside. He's talking about a canopy overhead that will mitigate the sound. That canopy is going to be made out of, it's like a cloth tarp. There's going to be no sound dampening from that. And as far as the music shutting down the minute the door opens, that's great, but people are still going to be singing, they're going to be carrying on, and what's being created now are going to be sound tunnels. Every time that door opens, the sound, whether it's people laughing or drinking, and we know the more that people drink, the more they laugh and the louder they get. It's in rooms, but they all open to the outside. So, it's going to be loud. The parking is going to be atrocious. We all feel like we're just not going to have another moment's peace in our neighborhood, and it's actually a very quiet neighborhood, believe it or not. So, I'm asking you guys today to deny the request to reconsider what you had already voted on in November and signed in February. We would love for you to keep that in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Appleby, Appleby. I live at 1119 West 40th Street. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. My house is adjacent and on the corner from where this establishment is planning on being. I am very much concerned with the parking and the noise, as these are row homes, and I don't know about anybody else's house, but my row home is on the corner. I can hear the neighbor next door sneeze. The noise from the extended trafficking from the people, the cars, I don't know what else to say. I'm opposed to this, and I really hope that you stick to your last resolution and not pass this. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the question they have is proposed fixes.
Do you have anybody else here who's going to be testifying in opposition?
May I say again something?
Sure, your last time.
I didn't know if anyone else was going to bring it up, and I didn't want to take the whole time. But the lots that he is suggesting, if it wasn't clear before.
I'm sorry, I need you to speak up a little
Yep, the lots that he was suggesting, I'm bringing this up because I just didn't know if anyone else was going to speak on it, and I didn't want to take up the entire time. But people are going to park in the neighborhoods before they go around and find these blocks right? There's not going to be signs or balloons like you would for a kid's birthday, follow down the road, and there it is.
Proposed garage, lots in various other places.
Right, the various lots and other places. Like maybe once you get there will be signs. Once you get there is the key. I imagine there's not going to be a constant breadcrumb trail on how to get to these lots. And even if there is, when people go and put the address in their phones to get there, they're going to get there and be like, oh, open spot on the neighborhood street. Why would they go anywhere else? So just to make that clear.
Thank you.
I just have one quick question for you.
Yep.
And I'm not sure whether Mr. Lane can answer this better. So I see, of course, 4013 is around the corner of Falls Road. The other two lots, are you seeing those are the alley? I guess no one can see what I'm talking about. It's behind the it's behind where the karaoke would go. Is that?
You're asking about the proposed parking lots that Mr. Lang stated that he has got the agreements for, where they're located.
Look on the map. So there's the garages that would be right behind there, that would be taken down for parking, correct?
There are some garages that's adjacent to it says on the plan, it's.
But then the other two that are sort of farther away, like 2 or 3 blocks away, it's debatable whether they're 600 feet
Yeah, that's the
within the 600 feet circle that you're asking for.
And that's 1100 West 41st and 1035 West 41st.
41st.
Okay.
Sir, these alternative parking arrangements you set up.
Yep.
Are you just going to go back to him, or are you?
Yeah, I thought it was his time to speak now.
No, we just asked him a question. We have to figure out if we're done with,
We're done with the
anybody else?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You can close it out.
We're not done.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind folks that there was a list of 23 individual emails that were sent. So in addition to the folks that you see here, there's a cadre of folks who feel strongly enough that they pulled it together and wrote a letter to the director before.
Yeah, just to remind the board that we had the original packet, which you guys got, and then the slew of emails that we received from the time that this was rescheduled was all in your packet and forwarded to you. So anything that came before 24 hours before today's hearing, the board received.
Great. So you have 23 additional things to consider.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Concludes the opposition. Mr. Lang, come on.
I really don't have too much to say. That I followed the protocol based on what needed to be done by going to the neighborhood association and was granted MOU.
Let me ask you about that. In the opposition, it asked, I understand that no new proposed MOU was provided to you. Did you have any discussion with them at all with the understanding that this one will no longer work?
I did have, from day one, I've always been open to new solutions and so forth. And I went back and forth. I've met with them, as I said, 4 to 5 times as a group to try to come up with some new, if adjusted MOU, and we just weren't able to come up with anything. I think the last overture that they had was more so the closing time, and they wanted me to. The business opens at 5 p.m. and they wanted me to close at 10. But basically 4 or 5 hours to open, and I said that doesn't make any sense. So that was the only outside of the current MOU we discussed trying to come together, and there was 10 o'clock was the last thing that they said. 10 p.m. the establishment would have to close, and I said I wouldn't be able to sign anything like that. I can't open my doors at 5 and then close at 10. I also would like to emphasize the fact that, again, I've been operating an establishment 4 blocks in a C1 zone from this area. Live music without any complaints, any issue. I've gone, any police being called, et cetera, any noise complaints. This is 13 years. I have a track record to show that I've been accommodating to the neighborhood. It's not though I'm creating something new, I'm coming into the neighborhood and no one knows who I am. I have a track record. And
Would you agree that operating live entertainment in a club in a commercial district might present a little differently when it's abutting up against residential?
Again, if you look at the establishment where it was, 11 of 17 West 36th Street, residential butted up against me. To the side of me, behind me, there was residential.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. You can
Can't do that.
try to keep it in.
That's correct.
13.5 is at the corner of 36th Street and what street?
36 and Falls. So the building, the houses on Falls Road, the back alley, if I look at. Repeat that for me?
They're not that close, are they?
You just don't realize it, the
rear of those
exactly.
houses?
So the rear goes right up, it ends right next to the building. So if I open the rear door, I can touch the backyard, the cars parked from Falls Road. And then Hickory, it's right next to me. Again, I walk from here, the first house on Hickory right behind me. Falls Road is right there.
So for example, if
Maybe
I
those
wanted,
residents just didn't care.
yeah, let's say for example, if I wanted to visit 13.5, most likely I'm gonna park on Hickory, or I'm gonna turn
Park
around
on Falls Road. Yes.
So, one of the issues that's been brought up today is that when people visit your establishment, this karaoke bar, that a lot of the parking concerns where people will find the first available spot when they get there rather than trying to find these alternative parking arrangements that you have, in good faith established. How do you deal with that issue?
Sure. I mean, everything is driven by the internet nowadays. I mean, I do my due diligence. So I've entered 4001 Falls Road numerous times coming from various north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
It always brings me down to Falls Road. It doesn't bring me down to Hickory.
Yeah.
On our website, that's the first thing, that's really one of the main reasons why to have a website would be the operational hours and parking.
Yeah.
And that, a map, an aerial view of map, you have Google. I mean, there's just so
But
many.
you can't tell people not to park
Exactly.
in the first available spot they see.
Correct. That's
For example, I go to that cobbler right there on Falls Road often.
Oh, yeah, the shoe cobbler, yes.
The parking is on Falls Road itself. There isn't much of it.
That time in the evening hours.
Yeah.
I think in the daytime hours there is an issue, but in the evening hours on Falls Road, I've gone up and down there 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. The McDonald's went up. There's ample parking at that time.
And I have one last question. For the alternative arrangements you've decided, do you know the distance they are from?
A city block.
Your staff? Would you happen to know how many feet?
I would say it's. I would say maybe.
I can look it up.
Yeah, maybe 400 feet.
But you believe that it is within 600 feet?
Actually, I'm looking at them. It looks like it's across from one is across from Rural Farms. Is that
correct?
And then the other one is
from the Giant.
Across from the Giant.
Yes. One is across from Rural Farms, which is like a stone right at the end of the alley. And then the other one, as you said, is across from the Giant.
Did you present a document showing these various parking areas?
Repeat that for me?
Did you present any document?
I started, after the hearing is when I went and started knocking on doors to these various establishments to try to garner more.
Did you present a document for today's hearing? If we're looking at.
I did. I put the 2 emails from the establishment.
Oh, no, it's different. Yeah.
Let me see.
Could I see the email?
And if you note, the one email indicated that he wanted, I have the
It was
letter
like
of
a big
intent from 2013, and again, the 8 parking spots adjacent to it, and then the 2 emails from the establishment. One of them indicated that he wanted to have at least 6 months minimum to start, and the other gentleman said, hey, we're uncertain how, we want to make sure it's right for you, so we'll give you the first 2 months for free and see how it develops, and are people utilizing the parking, et cetera, et cetera.
Email?
As far as the negotiations for this, I guess, for the new MOU, outside of parking, what other details did you guys discuss? And do you think there's no other room for you guys to go back to the table? You guys, everybody has said like it's not going to happen, so you guys are pretty much saying that this is where the decision is going to be made. Is that true? Do you think that no other way you guys can reach an MOU on this issue, on any of these issues?
Again, you would have to talk to the I went directly to the Hampton Community Council rather than trying to knock on individual doors and receive the MOU. And I went back to try to negotiate and navigate. The neighbors wanted me to close at 10 o'clock. And it just doesn't make any sense. When I can open, the restaurant will be open, the kitchen hours alone at the restaurant is until midnight. So I can open up a restaurant later than I can open up live entertainment.
Yeah, this email, this is just directing whoever he's dealing with.
And there should be 2 emails in record.
Okay, I think
This, you said before the email, where somebody said the email shows the proof of parking and the locations and whatever?
I never said it showed.
Well, I just heard that from somebody.
Yeah. I'm just saying that we have, I've been navigating with the 2 establishments, and I actually sent the 1100 a letter of intent to execute. And he said, well, could you include this, and the other? And he wanted 6 months, he wanted minimum 6 months contract.
What I asked was, had you submitted for today's hearing a document or a drawing or something that showed your location and the proposed parking areas in proximity to your location?
No, to the 41st Street.
Basically, did you draw out a map showing it, or you just gave us the addresses and the list of the parking garages?
Correct.
You didn't draw a visual aid for it?
No, I did not.
Okay.
All right, I think, does that conclude the questions? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your input.
I stand by our.
All right, so now just to, it's interesting, right? Because our rules say that we have the motion for reconsideration, the board can do 3 things. You can deny, and you could set it in for a hearing. Next steps, though, the rules don't necessarily identify next steps. So I think deliberations, taking into consideration everything that we heard the last time, what the resolution said, now looking at the 2 limited factors that were before us, the MOU and then the parking, does that change, in anything that you heard today, does that change your decision?
I would say no.
There's no MOU.
I think all you have to do is look, just like they said, look at the resolution that we put forth the last time.
I think when I thought it was a new MOU, that's part of what I considered, but if we're deliberating, for me, it's difficult because I do understand that he signed an agreement with them and they kind of withdrew it, but also like, they're right, how do you withdraw, like, you're allowed to change your mind at some point. And there should have been a clause in there. That's why we go to law school, so we can write dumb stuff like that into agreements.
Yeah, happens all the time. We don't have a new MOU, right?
No, there's no new
There's
MOU.
very little evidence for parking that he submitted.
What we're looking at is an MOU that's apparently invalid because they basically rescinded it on the side
And
of the
he said it a
HCC.
bunch of times that they rescinded it.
So that's not on the table. There's no agreement.
So the only new information is the extra parking spots
The additional parking garages.
and the soundproofing, I guess. The way he's gonna soundproof it.
schematic.
Well, that would have been part of the MOU discussion, so I think it's fair for us to discuss it.
I think, I mean, he testified about it, so.
Yeah, so it's in the record.
It's in the
Yeah.
record.
Um,
And we don't even know if the new
Who
parking is.
wasn't here? Who didn't vote?
Those two.
These guys.
Okay.
Can we vote?
Yes.
Oh,
Sure. Now heard everything.
Yeah, we have.
And you guys got the link to the last.
Oh,
meeting,
there,
so
yeah.
You heard all the,
Yeah.
there was a lot of testimony on parking, there was a lot of testimony on the noise.
Oh, as far as the parking, I mean, I know he truly tried, and I commend him for trying. But they're really.
I don't think that's a good feat.
Especially in heels.
Yeah, one is across from Giant. If you don't know
It
that
seems
one.
unworkable.
So, and the code says you have to be within 600 feet.
Yeah.
If
That's the
you're,
other part.
so it's lot line to lot line. It doesn't have to be walking of 600 feet.
Right.
It's 600 feet lot line to lot line.
So do we have any better evidence of what the actual distance is from what?
No, that's what I
He
asked
doesn't-
for.
I can show,
And I think the burden is on him.
No, well, it is.
Yeah, that's what I asked
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Burden's on
you're
him
right,
to
he
give
did
us
not draw any.
Yeah, burden's on him to give
Does
us
that
it.
mean to make an actual determination?
In order to consider it.
I don't think we have enough facts to.
Interestingly enough, it's enough spots, it's just the wrong places, and they're like all kind of, for 100-something people on this, 40-something spots.
You're
seems
not
like
gonna
enough.
drive. You're not gonna park at
So what?
Giant. You're not gonna park at Giant to walk the Falls Road.
I'm Ubering.
Yeah.
Aforementioned heels.
I haven't seen anything before me that solves the parking issue that we looked at last time. And certainly our resolution is very clear. The basis for the resolution is very clear. So I see no reason why we should reconsider this.
Yeah.
We're reconsidering it right now, right?
Yeah.
We've already decided to
But we should
reconsider it.
change our decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've heard that would change your decision? And
No.
The reason it came back was issues surrounding the MOU and information that wasn't available last time regarding off-street parking.
Everything Bill said is what I agree with.
The only question I would have
Whatever, I agree with you often.
is the MOU, and based on what the questions that you asked, what would make that, when it's a contractual obligation?
Well,
Decision happens all the time.
yeah.
To be fair, I don't know that it's a contract in the strict definition of that.
That's my
It is it is words that we all understand together.
I mean, apparently it could be attacked on a number of fronts.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
The
my thoughts.
execution of it
And,
is in
and
error.
the congressperson is correct. If you do want to change it, there is no, how do you change it? Other than by telling the person who you entered into the agreement with, I want to change this.
And
if
as
they
we sit
choose to
here,
ignore you.
we sit here today, we know there's not agreement.
At all.
between the
Yeah, that's no,
parties.
there's no understanding.
Offer, acceptance, or the other ones? Come on now.
Consideration.
Offer acceptance, consideration.
No.
Come on, Harvard.
There's no dispute, everybody knows, parties each know that we don't have agreement on these issues, and,
Yeah, that's no agreement.
yeah. I mean, I think based on the record,
There's no
you know,
meeting
before
of the
me,
minds.
I have not seen enough to tell me that that resolution ought to be undone, to change that. It would have been helpful to have had some more specific information, distance, measurements, given what the code requires, to state that that could be considered as, parking. Of course, we still have the issues of, are they really gonna do it? But he has the,
He's gonna try.
it's his burden to present information to, give us that we consider it.
I don't think it's not enough.
And I don't think there's enough in the record to
Agreed.
undo where we are.
Did you get everybody?
Yes.
I agree.
Otis is always the one that we gotta check on.
Oh, I mean, no, I agree. I agree for this reasons
Okay,
given.
so essentially, the vote is there enough to change your resolution?
No.
No.
Approval of,
No, we don't have to do anything.
Consent
Oh,
document.
yeah.
So now we just have to go through the consents,
Oh,
and that was it.
Just have to read them. There's only 4 of them. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your time, everyone.
Well, thank you guys for waiting, being patient.
okay. Case number 2022-119, 600 through 630 South Caroline Street by consent.
Yes.
Case number 2022-131, 506 South Dallas Street, consent. Case number 2022-141, 4517 Park Heights, consent. Case number 2022-168, 6533 Pebble Brook Road, consent.
That's it.
All right, so we've just killed ourselves for next week, the next
Oh, my goodness.
because we put Roland Avenue on
Yeah.
524.
I
Right.
promised to bring snacks. I know I've said that
We're off
twice.
the record, by the way.
Okay.
We're off the record. I'm bringing,
Oh, you're gonna
these are all the things